This girl had just won a $5 million lottery, only to be crushed to death by someone who jumped off a building. Unwilling to accept her fate, she went to the underworld and threw a massive tantrum. She stretched the underworld guards' tongues into 2 meters long twists and cried so hard the king of the underworld's palace almost collapsed. The old king had lived for ages, but had never met such a difficult girl. He was at his wit's end and quickly arranged for her to be reincarnated as a princess in her next life, destined to enjoy a life of immense wealth and luxury. The girl was overjoyed and immediately asked, "Will I have a mom and dad? Brothers and sisters? Will everyone love me?" The old king gave an awkward smile and said, "Yes. Yes, you'll have everything you want." He just wanted to get this little troublemaker out of his sight. So, he threw out the Book of Fate and yelled, "Unjust Soul 99! Hurry up and get reincarnated!" But when the girl opened her eyes, oh my God, she was in the cold palace. Her brother was locked up in a dark cell. Her mother was powerless to protect herself, and her grandparents had been exiled for treason. Was this some kind of super tragic starter pack? And just 0.01 seconds after becoming a princess, she was forced to disguise herself as a boy and live as a prince. "I hate you, old king of the underworld," Jojo seethed. "Where's the doing family you promised? Where's the wealth and luxury?" Jojo basically shut down, screaming internally, "Just destroy it all. My happy little world is gone." 5 years passed, and Juju's life was miserable. Not only was she short on food and clothes, but she had never even seen her so-called father. She figured she'd just muddle through this life. But then, she accidentally offended the arrogant Princess Anyang, all because Jugu didn't kneel to her. The name Princess Anyang sounded a bit familiar. After thinking for a while, Juju realized she had been placed inside a novel called The 1,000-Year Empress. This princess, Anyang Funai, was the main character. Her own deadbeat dad had no daughters, so he raised Funkai, a relative in the palace, like his own child, even betrothing her to the crown prince. The crown prince was madly in love with her. And when the Western Chu kingdom fell 10 years later, Fungi went on to become the empress of the Southern Kingdom, uniting the world with its emperor, a total girl boss protagonist. Meanwhile, Guju was not only an unacknowledged child, but was fated to be beaten to death by her own father on this very day. A classic cannon fodder. Juju was not about to accept this miserable fate. Seeing Guju remain silent, Funhiwei flew into a rage and raised her hand to scratch the little prince's face. Jojo instinctively blocked the attack and yelled, "What are you doing? Get away from me!" Fun's Highway, who had never been treated this way, immediately started playing the victim. She tearfully told the emperor, "Uncle Emperor, that boy stole my things and tried to scratch my face." A classic case of the villain playing the victim first. As Guju stood there, stunned, the tyrant emperor had already approached. He was a real piece of work. Without asking any questions, he ordered his men to seize Guju and execute him, then immediately turned to comfort the liar, Fun Kai. "My dear Wei, don't cry. Your face is all tear-streaked like a little kitten." Bung's Highway wiped her snot and tears all over the tyrant emperor's robes. Her tyrant father shot Guju a death glare that almost made her wet her diapers. "Is this tyrant really going to kill me without even asking what happened? He's my own father. They say even a vicious tiger won't eat its own cubs." The tyrant emperor's expression suddenly darkened. He thought he heard the little brat talking, but strangely his mouth wasn't moving. Could he be hearing his thoughts? The emperor became curious. "Which palace is this boy from? What's his status?" A eunuch replied, "Your Majesty, he is the son of a concubine from the Cold Palace, the 18th prince." The emperor, who always favored daughters over sons, didn't even blink. He ordered his men to drag him away and beat him to death. Joe felt incredibly wronged. Fun's Highway is just a big liar. I didn't steal her stuff. She was the one who wanted to scratch my face because she was jealous of how cute I am. My tyrant dad is an idiot. No wonder the Western Kingdom is going to fall in 10 years. The fate of the nation was at stake. The emperor heard this and immediately lost his cool. "Wait, I have questions for him." Jojo was dumbfounded. What's going on? Did my deadbeat dad have a change of heart? Am I not going to die just yet? He turned a funky way and asked what was stolen. The little girl sneakily threw her gold bracelet into the bushes behind her and shouted, "It's over there! He just threw it over there!" Jojo watched her performance and sneered internally. What kind of idiot throws stolen goods right behind her? Her IQ is embarrassing. I bet a certain blind and heartless tyrant won't be able to see through it. Don't talk nonsense. I can hear you. The Emperor roared in his mind, his face red with anger. He ordered Fungiwei to tell the truth. Fungiwei's round little face was so scared it turned square. She dropped to her knees and begged for mercy, but the Emperor wasn't indulging her this time. He ordered her to be sent to the Grand Empress Dager to learn some manners. Hearing this, Fungai burst into tears. Jojo watched with glee. Did this tyrant have a sudden burst of conscience and get smart all of a sudden? The Emperor heard Juju's thoughts and shot him a fierce glare, making Guju's heart tremble. Eek! So scary, seeing her dear Uncle Emperor unmoved. Fungiwei begged Noble Consort Zheng, "Auntie, save me!" Noble Consort Zheng was also panicking. Wei was her key to favor. If we left, the Emperor would stop visiting her palace. She shamelessly pleaded for her niece. "Your Majesty, please forgive Wei just this once," the Emperor snapped, scolding Noble Consort Zhang. "It's all because of your poor discipline. From today on, you are confined to your quarters for reflection." Thinking she was in the clear, Guju tried to sneak away, but was immediately frozen in place by the Emperor's death glare. She was so scared, her diapers got wet again. Why is the tyrant looking at me with that weird expression? Is he still going to have me beaten to death? I'm so scared. I don't want to die. The Emperor leaned in to get a better look at Guju. He was actually quite a cute kid, rosy-cheeked, innocent, and adorable. Much better looking than his 17 older brothers. If he were a girl, he'd be so precious. The Emperor sighed with regret and had Eunuch Fuan send Juju back. Seeing that the Emperor wasn't going to kill her and was even sending someone to escort her, Guju thought he had a little bit of a conscience after all. She couldn't help but ramble in her mind. If this deadbeat dad had been this wise from the start, my poor mother wouldn't have been locked up in the cold palace. But he's not that great either. In a little while, when he walks across the bridge over the lake, it's going to collapse and break his leg. Jojo wanted to warn him, but then she thought, this dad hasn't cared about me or my mom at all. Why should I care about him? He can die for all I care. Soon, Eunuch Fuan had escorted Guju back to the cold palace. Still, Jojo felt a little guilty. She decided to have the eunuch pass on a warning. When you get to the lake by the Imperial Garden, wait for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea before crossing the bridge. On his way back to his study, the Emperor mulled over Guju's words. That little brat said the Western Chu kingdom will fall in 10 years. I'll listen for now, but not take it too seriously. But he also said, my leg would break. That sounds creepily specific. Just then, Fuan returned. Seeing the Emperor walking toward the lake, he remembered Guju's words and quickly stopped him. Your Majesty, perhaps we should have a cup of tea before continuing. The Emperor understood instantly. That little brat must have said something. At least he had some conscience. The Emperor coughed arrogantly and had Fuan serve tea. He wanted to see if this bridge would really collapse. 5 minutes passed and the bridge was still standing. The Emperor grew impatient. It seems what that little brat said isn't necessarily true. At that moment, Headmaid Lu from the Imperial Study came to summon the Emperor to handle state affairs. But just as the Emperor stood up, a massive boom echoed from behind him. The bridge had collapsed and it was completely shattered. The Emperor couldn't imagine the consequences if he had been on it. Just as the brat had said, he would have broken a leg, if not died. The court would have been in chaos, and the kingdom would have eventually fallen apart. It seems that little brat really has the power to see the future. He's a national treasure. The Emperor was so happy he could jump for joy. He immediately had made Lu send the old officials away, keeping only the national master, and then gleefully headed for the cold palace. Guju, the little rascal, had been out wandering all day, and was just now slowly returning home. Concubine Li rushed forward and hugged Guju tightly, her face already streaked with tears. After all, the last time Juju's brother went out for a walk, he got into trouble and was thrown in the imperial prison and hasn't been seen since. Now Jugu was her only child left. Jojo reached out her chubby little hands and clumsily wiped her mother's tears, smiling innocently. When Guju grows up, I'll take care of you and give you a good life. As for rescuing Big Brother, the time just isn't right yet. Concubine Li caressed Guju's head, moved. Mommy doesn't care about a good life. I just want you to be safe and sound. Looking at her kind and beautiful mother, Juju felt even more indignant on her behalf. My deadbeat dad must be blind to have overlooked a woman like my mom. Ever since Juju was born, Concubine Li had been able to hear her thoughts. So the more mature Guju acted, the more her heart ached for her, carrying so many secrets at such a young age. Just then, a servant girl ran in, shouting, "This is bad! The Emperor is here!" Concubine Li looked as if a great enemy had arrived. After being locked in the cold palace for 5 years, the Emperor had never once visited. Something strange was definitely going on. Her first instinct was to have Guju hide, but Guju comforted her mother. "Don't worry, Mom. Maybe Father is here to take us out of here." Concubine Li sighed. That was probably just wishful thinking. Just as she thought this, the tyrant Emperor strode in, his aura overwhelming. The moment he entered, he was stunned by how run down the cold palace was. He muttered to himself, "This is no place for a person to live." Concubine Li quickly hid Guju behind her and bowed tremblingly. Your servant greets the Emperor. Long live the Emperor." The Emperor smiled at the woman before him. Compared to the gaudily dressed women in the palace, her simple, plain clothes gave her a unique charm. He took the initiative and held Concubine Li's hand. "No need for formalities. Please sit." A whole tea time passed, and the Emperor hadn't said a single word. But his mind was racing. Jojo saved my life, so she should be rewarded. But if I tell her I know and she gets upset and stops giving me predictions, what will I do? Just as Concubine Li was about to break the awkward silence, the Emperor finally came up with a reason that would both keep Guju on his side and not hurt her feelings. He cleared his throat and said, "Concubine Li, I plan to reopen the case of your alleged treason. Furthermore, you have done a great service by raising the 18th prince. You may move out of the cold palace." This sudden favor left Concubine Li stunned and overjoyed. "This servant thanks His Majesty for his grace." Jojo looked at the Emperor and grumbled in her mind. "My deadbeat dad has finally seen the light. Keep it up and maybe I'll even start to like you." The arrogant Emperor scoffed internally. He didn't care about Guju's affection. His coldness made Gu feel even more wronged. Of course, he doesn't care if I like him. "What was—" "Your Majesty, that calling for you from the Imperial study again. They say it's urgent." The Emperor immediately stood up and with a wave of his hand granted Concubine Li and Guju the Autumn Water residence, the best location in the palace. He even ordered Fuan to personally help them move. Joju's eyes darted around as if she'd thought of something. In this next battle, the Western Two Kingdom is not only going to be utterly defeated, but will also lose 30,000 soldiers. The losses will be devastating. They'll have to give up land and pay reparations. It's going to be a total disaster. Hearing, the Emperor shamelessly sat back down. "I'm a bit thirsty. I'll have another cup of tea before I go." He pricked up his ears, desperate to know the reason for the defeat. But Guju just looked confused. Is there something wrong with my deadbeat dad? Why is he looking at me with that weird expression again? "Mommy, I'm sleepy. I want to go to sleep." The Emperor, "And you little brat, want to go to sleep." But the Emperor wasn't giving up. Even after Guju fell asleep, he stayed by her side, staring at her intently. To hear Guju's thoughts, the Emperor went to the insane length of not letting her sleep. "You little brat, wake up for me." Her heartbroken mother risked her life to intervene. "Your Majesty, even if you don't like Guju, you can't torment her like this." The Emperor gave an awkward but polite smile and stubbornly claimed he just wanted to sleep next to Guju. Everyone else in the room gave him a "yeah, right" look. However, The emperor obediently picked up the drooling Jugu and dismissed everyone else. As soon as Juju was asleep, the emperor started trying to get information out of her. Guju, our Western Chu is about to lose a battle. What should we do? She grumbled internally.
It's because that spy from the Southern Kingdom leaked our military plans.
Weepy Ping faked a pregnancy so she could constantly go to my deadbeat dad's study and steal military intelligence, which led to the defeat.
If my dad fed her some fake intelligence for her to steal, Western Chu could turn the tables and win a huge victory against the Southern Kingdom. Her dad felt the sting of Guju's tiny fist. He was so moved, he shed a tear.
What did I ever do to deserve such a brilliant child?
The emperor was in a fantastic mood. He couldn't resist planting a loud "mwah" on Guju's cute little cheek before gleefully leaving. With the big fly gone, Guju could finally get some sleep. The next day, Fuan came, as ordered, to help Concubine Li and Guju move. Concubine Li asked to bring Nanny Gui with them to the Autumn Water residence. Now that Concubine Li was in the emperor's favor, Fuan naturally agreed to everything. The happiest of all was Guju, because in her 5 years in the cold palace, besides her mother, Nanny Gui had been the kindest to her. The three of them held hands and left the cold palace to start their new life, leaving the other palace maids to watch with envy and jealousy. 7 days later, the emperor in his study received a report of victory from the front lines. He was relieved he had listened to Guju. After fighting the Southern Kingdom for so many years, this was the first time they had won so decisively. Then more good news came from the front. The Southern Kingdom was sending envoys for peace talks. Your Majesty is brilliant! The military officials hadn't even finished their flattery before the emperor was eager to head to the Autumn Water residence, only to be stopped by the National Master, who said he had something urgent to discuss. The emperor had no choice but to listen. The National Master opened his mouth and said, "I am going to die." The emperor was stunned. "Nonsense! That's bad luck! Say something else." The National Master only wanted to give the emperor some final advice. "I have been observing the stars and discovered that the Western Chu Kingdom will face a devastating crisis in 10 years. But there is a solution. That person is the 18th prince. No matter what happens, I implore your Majesty to always trust the 18th prince and ensure his safety." The emperor took this to heart and nodded. "I will remember." He hesitated for a moment before asking the National Master one last question. "Is it true that I am fated to have no daughters?" The National Master didn't answer, only saying, "Heaven's secrets must not be revealed." With that, he collapsed and died. The next day, news spread that the National Master had passed away. The emperor didn't know if it was a natural death or divine punishment for revealing heavenly secrets. Lost in thought, he made his way to the Autumn Water residence to visit Concubine Li and Guju. "His Majesty, the Emperor, has arrived." Concubine Li and Guju bowed in greeting. Jojo looked up and saw her dad's long face and wondered, "Didn't we just win a battle? Why does my dad look so unhappy? Did something else happen?" "Oh, right. The National Master died." When he heard the words, "The National Master died," the Emperor's eyes lit up. He grabbed Guju's small shoulders. The National Master's death was so sudden. "I wonder what the reason was." Jojo grumbled to herself. His time was up, obviously. Hearing this, the Emperor was as happy as a kid in a candy store. He was so overjoyed that he kissed Guju 99 times. Jojo was completely stunned by the kisses. I was just kissed by an old man. Jugh. I'm not pure anymore. After being unexpectedly kissed by her dad, Guju felt like she could just die. The Emperor looked at his child with a pained expression for a moment, then decided to just go for it. He held Guju and smothered her with 99 more kisses, leaving her completely bewildered. Concubine Li, however, thought a dazed Juju was incredibly cute and couldn't resist joining the kissing fest. Jojo felt like her face was going numb. A world where only she suffered was now complete. My parents have such a weird way of thinking. They just kiss you whenever they feel like it. But deep down, Juju felt a little spark of happiness. After all, she was an orphan in her past life. Now she could truly feel the love of her parents. When the emperor and concubine Li heard about Guju's past life, their hearts filled with pity. The family of three hugged each other tightly, wanting to give Juju even more love. Guju had performed a great service, and the emperor showered her with countless treasures. But all Guju wanted was to wear pretty little dresses, a request her mother flatly refused. Her mother's position was still weak. Her grandparents were still in exile, and her own name had not yet been cleared of treason. Just then, Nanny Gui came to ask what kind of food they should prepare to welcome concubine Qing. Juju immediately became alert. Concubine Qing is on noble consort Jiang and Fungai's side. What is she doing here? I remember the book said she always tries to move in with newly favored concubines, and then those concubines all mysteriously end up dead. If she comes to the Autumn Water residence, my mom and I could end up dead too. Concubine Li heard Guju's thoughts and grew pensive. She then told Nenigi not to prepare any special food. Nenigi was confused as the concubine had just told her to prepare a lavish meal. Concubine Li gently stroked Guju's head, saying she now saw concubine Qing's true hypocritical colors. She ignored them when they were in trouble, but came running to suck up now that they were favored. Nanny Gui breathed a sigh of relief, finally able to say what she had been holding back for years. I'm so glad your ladyship understands now. The next morning, as concubine Qing set off for the Autumn Water residence, she confidently promised Fungai she would complete her mission, stay at the Autumn Water residence, and get rid of concubine Li and her child. Fungai nodded in satisfaction, eagerly awaiting the results. In a flash, concubine Qing arrived at the Autumn Water residence with a fake smile. Sister, I've come to see you. Concubine Li didn't even bother to get up, simply saying, Since you're here, sister, please come in and sit. This attitude truly surprised concubine Qing. She had expected concubine Li to hug her and cry. Anxiously, she entered and sat down. When she saw Guju, she smiled and reached out to hold her, scaring Guju so much her diapers nearly got wet. Mommy, save me! Concubine Li firmly grabbed concubine Qing's wrist. The child is shy with strangers. She then had someone serve tea. As concubine Qing drank her tea, she looked around the Autumn Water residence and said sarcastically, Your place is so magnificent, sister. Not like my shabby little green jade pavilion. Concubine Li was unfazed and told her to ask the Department of Household Affairs to repair it. Concubine Qing immediately started playing the victim, crying, Those dogs at the Department of Household Affairs only help those who are favored. They'll never help me. Concubine Li wasn't having it. She casually pointed to her sleeve. This shoe brocade is fine material. Are you sure they're ignoring you? Concubine Qing was once again speechless. Finally, she used the excuse that she missed concubine Li after so many years apart and wanted to move in with her. Concubine Li mercilessly exposed her malicious intentions. Concubine Qing was flustered, made a few clumsy excuses, and tried to leave, hoping concubine Li would ask her to stay. Instead, concubine Li immediately told her to leave. Concubine Qing was so angry she could have ground her teeth to dust. With concubine Qing gone and the crisis averted, Guji was overjoyed. Nanny Gi reported that the 10th and 11th princes were pacing outside, afraid to come in. Concubine Li coldly ordered them to be sent away. Jojo was puzzled. Why is mom so cold to these two brothers? They were the closest to my 13th brother. After he got into trouble, they tried their best to save him, and even lost their own lives in the process. But mom never liked them, which is why they died, full of guilt. Thinking of this, Juju tugged on her mother's sleeve, begging her to let her brothers in. Concubine Li, having heard Guju's thoughts, was shocked. She never knew the 10th and 11th princes were so loyal and righteous. After years in the cold palace, she had learned the value of true friendship and nodded in agreement. When the two princes saw concubine Li, they quickly bowed and promised to keep trying to find a way to save their 13th brother. Hiding behind her, Guji could see their anxiety and nervousness.
They had planned to leave after paying their respects,
But were shocked when concubine Li invited them to sit for tea. This nearly scared the souls out of them, as they were used to being scolded by her. Sensing their panic, concubine Li took their hands and formally apologized for misjudging them in the past.
the sensible 10th prince quickly said,
It was us who were young and foolish, always angering your ladyship.
"It won't happen again."
Seeing that her mother and two brothers had resolved their misunderstanding, Guju swaggered out to meet them. The moment she saw them, she gasped. She instantly became a huge fan of her two handsome older brothers. Guju was ecstatic. The two princes were surprised to find they could hear Guju's thoughts, but didn't say anything. Worried people might think Guju was a monster. They had to protect her. The brothers hit it off immediately, both of them fighting to hug and kiss the adorable little Guju. Just as things were getting lively, the tyrant emperor appeared at the most inopportune moment, shattering the heartwarming scene. He even snatched Guju out of the 10th prince's arms. 10th prince, you look so pale. Did someone upset you? I'll stand up for you. You're the one misinterpreting the situation, you tyrant. The one who's upsetting me is you, the 10th prince thought miserably, fighting fire with fire. The 10th prince replied, Your son just has an upset stomach from something I ate. The emperor immediately scolded him to go see a doctor, and while he was at it, sent the 11th prince away as well. The two didn't dare disobey, and dejectedly left, though their hearts ached to stay with Guju. Jojo saw her brother's reluctance and tugged on her dad's sleeve. Father, Jojo likes my brothers. Brother's stomach hurts because he's hungry. Juju wants to eat with my brothers. The emperor readily agreed. The 10th and 11th princes were so moved, they almost cried. But during the meal, they were so nervous, they didn't dare touch their chopsticks. Guju guessed, My brothers must be scared of my dad. I want to help them win his favor. The two brothers felt a wave of warmth knowing Guju's intentions. However, when Guju looked at her dad, she found him staring intently at her mom, his eyes looking anything but innocent. He looked like a hungry wolf. When Guju's thought came out, everyone almost spat out their food. Only the emperor felt wronged. How am I a wolf for looking at my own wife? Father, eat more and you won't stare at mommy like a creep, the emperor sighed. Thanks a lot, you little brat. Just then, Fuan reported that the emperor's favorite, Princess Anyong, was kneeling outside, begging for forgiveness. The emperor was unmoved. If she wants to kneel, let her. Suddenly, it started to rain. Princess Anyong remained kneeling, her small body trembling and crying pitifully. Onlookers felt sorry for her. When Duke Duan and his wife heard their daughter had been kneeling in the palace for so long, they rushed in to persuade her to get up. But Fun's highway seemed glued to the ground, saying she wouldn't get up until her uncle emperor forgave her. Her words were full of arrogance and threat, terrified of losing her favor and wealth. A eunuch rushed to report to the emperor that Duke Duan and his wife wanted to take the royal family's only girl, Feng Kaihui, home. The emperor's face darkened, but he said nothing, his mind whirring. It was Guju who muttered to herself, It's obviously that bratty princess's own fault. Dad already sent someone to tell her to go back. Duke Duan and his wife are so clueless. Are they trying to manipulate the emperor? The emperor glanced at Guju and gave a meaningful smile. Huh? You little brat. You really understand me. After a moment's thought, the emperor ordered the duke's family of 3 to be sent out of the palace, and from now on, they were not to enter without a summons. It was a display of pure imperial authority, enough for the emperor to feel smug in front of Guju for a lifetime. Meanwhile, a eunuch swiftly ran out and announced the emperor's order in a high-pitched voice. Send the duke's family out of the palace. The group kneeling in the rain was instantly panicked. They never expected their little drama to fail so spectacularly. Bing's highway did not want to leave the palace. Once she left, she would no longer be the high and mighty princess. She gritted her teeth and slammed her head against a nearby water basin used for growing lotuses. Fainting on the spot, the eunuch ran back to report to the emperor. The emperor was furious. Who cares about someone else's daughter? I have my own princess. His eyes fell on Guju with a strange, almost creepy smile that nearly scared her out of her wits. He was holding a beautiful pale yellow dress, chasing Guju all over the place.
Juju, isn't this dress so pretty? Don't you want to wear it?
I don't want to. I don't want to. Seeing Guju's strong resistance, the emperor played his trump card. Juju, if you agree to wear this dress, I'll reward you with 500 taels of silver. The emperor's antics left the eunuchs and nannies completely dumbfounded.
Nanny Gi was worried Jojo would throw a fit.
But instead, Jojo reached out her chubby little hand and snatched the dress. Thinking about that shiny silver, she figured, who would say no to money? She immediately agreed to wear it.
Juju took the dress from her tyrant dad and skipped into her room.
Having Nanny Gi help her put it on and even style her hair into 2 cute buns. When the dressed-up pushed the door open, the emperor turned around and was so moved, he almost cried. The little prince had instantly transformed into an adorable little princess. So fair and cute, you just wanted to kiss her. And the emperor did not disappoint. He immediately swept her up in a hug, planted a big kiss on her cheek, and declared he would get her even more pretty dresses. As long as Guju was willing, she could name her price.
I don't have any conditions. I really like dressing like this, she thought,
wishing she could wear dresses all the time. The emperor was overjoyed to hear this, and lifted Guju into the air, spinning her around and around. At the same time, rumors about the 18th prince dressing as a girl spread throughout the palace. Even her 2 older brothers were worried about their little brother's fragile heart, and wanted to stand up for him, only to be turned down by Guju, who insisted that she was very happy to be able to wear a dress. Just then, Guju remembered something important was going to happen the next day, and told her 2 brothers to come find her. Then the next day, the 3 little ones were sneakily hiding outside the elephant stables. Today is the day the crown prince almost gets trampled to death by an elephant in heat. In the book, Fungai cleverly saves him, and because of that, the crown prince falls for her at first sight and becomes devoted to her. But Fungai doesn't love him at all.
Juju didn't know that her 2 brothers had heard her thoughts.
She asked them in a soft voice, "If someone was hurt by an elephant, would you save them?"
They both nodded. Of course.
Just then, the crown prince's procession arrived, and everyone stopped chatting to greet him. He was there to inspect the elephants to ensure everything was perfect for an upcoming ceremony to bring honor to the Western Chu kingdom. But as he inspected the last elephant, the crown prince noticed something was wrong. The elephant tamer quickly warned him to stay back. This elephant is in heat and is very agitated. The words were barely out of his mouth when the elephant snapped its reins and charged straight for the crown prince. The crown prince was skilled in martial arts, but he couldn't defend against such a sudden attack and was thrown to the ground. The elephant wasn't done and was about to crush him with its foot. The 10th prince reacted quickly, using the elephant's favorite food, a large banana, to lure it away. The 11th prince coordinated with him, rushing forward to save the crown prince. Jojo hid in a corner, silently cheering for her brothers. But the elephant seemed to realize it had been tricked and charged at the crown prince again. The 11th prince, trying to protect the crown prince, was viciously whipped by the elephant's trunk. His back must have been in agony. As he drifted in and out of consciousness, the crown prince learned that his 11th brother had risked his life to save him. In the end, the 10th prince managed to trap the elephant in a large iron cage. The crown prince was saved, and Guju, hiding in the corner, finally breathed a sigh of relief. But she was puzzled. If he's this formidable, how did Fungai save the crown prince in the book? She couldn't figure it out. Then she saw Fun's highway hiding in a corner not far away. Wasn't she supposed to be here to get close to the crown prince? She was just watching from the sidelines. Someone who would just stand by and watch someone die doesn't deserve the crown prince's love at all. The one who's truly worthy of him is Miss Yuan Ying from the Yu family, the one who never married for his sake, who disguised herself as a man to fight on the battlefield and who was captured and tortured by the enemy to save him, but never betrayed her country. I have to help the crown prince find his true love. But first, she had to check on her brothers, especially the 11th prince, who had been hit by the elephant's trunk. She went to check his injury and touched his back, only to pull her hand away covered in red juice, never knowing she was afraid of blood. Guju fainted on the spot. Meanwhile, the crown prince was taken back to the eastern palace. The imperial physician diagnosed him with no major injuries.
When the crown prince slowly woke up, the emperor was overjoyed.
He had almost failed the crown prince's deceased mother. The crown prince suddenly remembered his injured 11th brother and anxiously asked about his condition. The emperor was surprised to hear this because the version he had heard was that Princess Anyong bravely saved the crown prince. The kneeling servants had clearly been bribed by Funai and insisted that the crown prince was mistaken and that Princess Anyong was the true hero. Even though the crown prince vehemently denied it, the head eunuch persisted, claiming it was Princess Anyong and even asking for a reward for her. The emperor was furious and had the audacious servants dragged out and beheaded. They want a reward before the truth is even clear.
Something's fishy here.
Suddenly, Eunuch Fuan rushed in. Your Majesty, this is bad. Something's happened at the Autumn Water residence.
The 18th princess has fainted. The emperor's face immediately fell.
Back at the Autumn Water residence, the imperial physician had already bandaged the 11th prince's wound, and concubine Li was carefully taking notes.
When the emperor arrived, his first concern was whether his precious Guju was hurt.
The faint-hearted Guju had woken up long ago. She was fine, but her heroic brothers, the 10th and 11th princes, were injured. Hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor understood everything. From then on, he allowed the 10th and 11th princes to spend more time with the crown prince and help him with his duties. Seeing her dad's relationship with her brothers improve, Juju was so happy she almost jumped for joy. But she couldn't help but curse inwardly. My dog of a dad is blind. He can't see how evil that Funkai is. The emperor learned of Guju's thoughts and was heartbroken.
Does he really see me as such a foolish ruler?
Funky was certain that her heroic act of saving the crown prince would win her back the emperor's favor, and she even started dreaming of the crown prince falling madly in love with her. Little did she know what awaited her was an imperial edict that would knock her right back down to earth. Princess Anyong falsely claimed credit for a heroic deed, a crime of deceiving the monarch, which is punishable by death. However, in consideration of her years of companionship, the death penalty is waived, but she cannot escape punishment. Her title of Princess Anyong is hereby revoked. The betrothal is cannelled, and she is to be expelled from the palace. Funky Wei was instantly stunned. The crown prince was on his way to the Autumn Water residence to thank his 3 younger siblings for saving his life. The courtyard of the Autumn Water residence was bustling with activity, with the 2 brothers chasing Guju, begging for kisses. No way. No way. Little Guju was exhausted. Her face was practically numb from all the kisses. After finally escaping her brother's affectionate pursuit, she ran headfirst into the crown prince's knee. Guju's adorable appearance instantly charmed the crown prince, and his handsome face, in turn, captivated her. She couldn't help but sigh internally. The crown prince is so handsome. The crown prince was shocked. Guju's little mouth hadn't moved, but he had heard her voice. The innocent-looking Guju asked, "What's wrong, Crown Prince?" After confirming it was Guju's thoughts he had heard, the Crown Prince tried to calm himself, silently chanting, "What exists is reasonable." Jojo in a dress was just too cute. The Crown Prince couldn't resist wanting a hug. 18 brother, let your big brother hug you. No hugs. You're injured, Crown Prince. After a pause, she added, "Besides, I'm not the 18th brother. I'm the 18th sister."
Whoa!
Out of the mouths of babes, the crown prince quickly covered Guju's mouth. It's all father's fault for making my perfectly fine brother dress as a girl. Now he's confused about his own gender. The crown prince earnestly tried to brainwash Guju. 18th brother, you must remember, you are a proud and proper boy. Guju felt wronged. Nobody believes me when I tell the truth these days. Afterward, the crown prince thanked his brothers for saving his life, and even swore an oath to the heavens. In the future, I will protect you with my life. If I break this vow, may I be struck by lightning. At this moment, Guju thought of how such a noble crown prince was dragged down by the wicked Fang Kaiwei in the book, never marrying the Yu family's young lady who loved him so deeply.
It was such a pity. Hearing this, the crown prince was so shocked his jaw nearly hit the floor. The other two, who were also listening in, had the same shocked expression.
At noon, the emperor came to the Autumn Water residence for a free meal, just to see the adorable Juju. He also informed concubine Li that the Grand Empress de Jaeger, the Empress, and concubine Shu would be returning to the palace tomorrow. Jojo was stunned. Concubine Shu? My dad's favorite concubine. She's the one who framed my mom for treason. The villain is about to make her entrance. I wonder if my dad will punish her. Guju's big, beautiful eyes widened as she stared at her dad. Her dad, feeling guilty, quickly changed the subject. Guju, is the food not to your liking? Thinking about how her mother and brother's names hadn't been cleared yet, Guju's heart ached. The braised pork in front of her suddenly lost its appeal. Seeing Guju on the verge of tears, her dad immediately offered to take her to the imperial garden to catch butterflies. Hearing this, Guju was so happy she almost jumped for joy. Her dad patted her head, thinking to himself that she was, after all, just a 5-year-old kid. The father and daughter arrived at the imperial garden. Guju ran ahead while her dad chased after her, a picture of harmony and warmth. But the harmony lasted all of 1 second. In a corner of the garden, 2 reckless palace servants were gossiping, saying that once the Grand Empress Dager returned, she would surely send concubine Li and the 18th prince back to the cold palace. And with concubine Shu back, the emperor would naturally forget all about them. Now Guju was in no mood to play with her dad. She turned around and walked away without looking back. Her dumbfounded dad was dumbfounded again. The child he had just managed to cheer up had abandoned him. Just like that. In a fit of anger, the emperor ordered the 2 gossiping servants to be dragged out, their tongues cut off and fed to the dogs, and then beaten to death. The next morning, the emperor led the entire world to welcome the Grand Empress Dager back to the palace. Because of the gossip in the garden yesterday, Juju's heart was pounding, afraid her imperial grandmother wouldn't like her and her mom. Concubine Li quickly reassured her, saying, the Grand Empress de Jaeger was very kind and had been the one who saved her life back then, against all odds. The emperor turned and saw Guju's anxious face and also comforted her. Guju is so cute. Your imperial grandmother will definitely love you when she sees you. That's great. Guju was so happy she almost jumped for joy. Just then, the Grand Empress Dager, along with the Empress and concubine Shu, arrived in a grand procession. Jojo panicked. The Grand Empress Dager's face was dark and she didn't look very happy. It seems a lot has happened while I was away from the palace. The emperor heard this and quickly stepped forward to chat with his mother, not forgetting to introduce the adorable Guju. I'm the one who had Guju dress as a girl. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Concubine Li and Guju are innocent. The Grand Empress de Jaeger glanced at Juju. Jo was so scared, her diapers nearly got wet. This imperial grandmother is so fierce. I'm scared. The Grand Empress Dager frowned. Am I really that scary? The next second, she was so shocked her dentures almost flew out as she realized she could hear Guju's thoughts. She tried to compose herself and gave an awkward smile. She wasn't planning on blaming anyone. She just wanted to cuddle the cute child. Then the Grand Empress Dager smiled, squatted down, and reached out her hands to hug the soft and cute little Guju. Jojo cautiously reached back. The adorable little Guju instantly captured the Grand Empress de Jaeger's heart. With her sharp eyes, she could tell at a glance that Guju was a beautiful little princess. She was overjoyed holding Guju and immediately gifted her 2 large gold bracelets. The little money lover's eyes sparkled. She declared that her imperial grandmother was her favorite person ever. The last time she had that expression was when the emperor had given her 500 taels of silver. The emperor was officially dethroned. Father Juju wanted to call her dad to catch up, but saw that the wicked concubine Shu had already latched onto him, looking at him with eyes full of longing. But the emperor's attitude was cold. He replied, "The family banquet is ready. Concubine Shu, you should join us." Then he eagerly rushed forward, wanting to snatch his beloved Guju back from his mother. With her grandmother's backing, Gujo boldly stuck her tongue out at her dad. At the banquet, the Grand Empress Dager held Guju and wouldn't let go. Personally, feeding her all sorts of delicious food. The emperor was so jealous he could scream, and could only ask from time to time, "Mother, aren't your arms tired from holding Guju?" The Grand Empress Dager rolled her eyes a full 360 degrees. "Emperor, you've asked that question 1,086 times tonight."
I'm not tired.
While the emperor was feeling sorry for himself, concubine Shu started her act again. She toasted him and leaned against him, her words hinting that she hoped he would choose her for the night. Seeing this, Gujo grumbled internally. "She's such a villain. I hate her. My dad would never go to her place. When is he going to clear my mom's name? It was all concubine Shu who framed my mom." After hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor fell into deep thought. Maybe he really should investigate concubine Shu for framing concubine Li. To avoid alerting her, the emperor took concubine Shu's drink and downed it. But concubine Shu seemed to sense something was off. She didn't press the issue, and instead invited him to her palace for some sobering soup, saying she would go back and wait for him. Concubine Shu happily changed into a beautiful, skimpy garment and eagerly awaited the emperor's arrival. But to her surprise, a maid rushed in to report that the emperor had gone to the Autumn Water residence with a load of gifts. Concubine Shu was instantly furious and started cursing. That concubine Li. What kind of spell did she use to bewitch the emperor? I refuse to accept this. Losing favor on her first day back, and the culprit was the person she hated most. Concubine Li. Concubine Shu smashed her teacup. Who does concubine Li think she is? She was so angry she could have ground her teeth to dust, hating that the trees in charge hadn't finished her off last time. The emperor, wanting to confirm his suspicions, went to concubine Shu's palace. As he reached the entrance, he heard her smashing things and ranting, saying things that left him in disbelief. The emperor clenched his fists, suppressing his rage, and continued to listen as concubine Shu incriminated herself. Now everything was clear. The emperor signaled Fuan to open the door. As the door opened, he saw concubine Shu, still lost in her tirade against concubine Li. A kneeling maid saw the emperor and his entourage, and tried to signal her mistress. But concubine Shu didn't get it, and even scolded the maid. "You dead girl? What are you winking for? I'm not the emperor. You can't seduce me." The maid whispered, "The emperor is here." The emperor stood behind concubine Shu, his face dark, his presence suffocating. Concubine Shu was already gasping for breath, her face pale with panic. She knelt and stammered, Your servant greets the emperor." "Your Majesty, when did you arrive?" She was terrified, desperate to know if the emperor had heard her. If he had, she was finished. The emperor remained silent, just glaring at her. As concubine Shu tried to stand, the emperor kicked her in the shoulder, saying he never hit women, but she was so disgusting he had to make an exception. Concubine Shu burst into tears and tried her damsel in distress act, claiming she only said those things out of jealousy because she loved him so much. But the emperor wasn't buying it. He threw her aside and announced to the entire palace, "Concubine Shu has been stripped of her title and sent to the cold palace for framing another concubine. The charge of treason against concubine Li was baseless. Today, her name is cleared, and she is declared innocent. As for the 13th prince, he would have to find the right time to release him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to silence the court officials." Meanwhile, concubine Li and Guju were getting ready for bed when a stream of rewards began pouring into their palace. They were both astonished. Concubine Li had no idea what had gotten into the emperor to suddenly bestow so many treasures. The little money lover Guju's eyes sparkled at the sight of the treasure. After the eunuchs had delivered all the gifts, the emperor appeared. He looked at concubine Li with a hint of guilt and said, "Concubine Li, you have suffered all these years. I personally heard concubine Shu admit that she was the one who framed you. I should have investigated properly back then and not been so quick to send you to the cold palace." Not only did the emperor clear the names of Guju and her mother, but he also came to apologize in person.
The mighty emperor bowing to a woman made Guju suspicious.
Did my deadbeat dad suddenly fall for my mom?
The emperor heard Guju's thoughts and sighed to himself. You little rascal.
Concubine Li shook her head, thinking,
This silly child. What does she know about love? Emperors don't have time for love. She then asked the emperor to go back to his own quarters to sleep, but the emperor wanted to stay at the Autumn Water residence, only to be politely rejected by concubine Li. The emperor's face fell like a sad puppy's. All right then, I'll wait until you're ready. I'll go back to sleep. Jojo, you're coming with me.
He then picked up Guju and strode out with an air of undeniable authority.
Concubine Li was left completely stunned. Guju cursed internally. My dad is so despicable. He can't have my mom, so he's taking me hostage. Guju, at such a young age, was carrying so much. She felt wronged while the daughter-obsessed emperor was amused by her interesting thoughts. One day, Guju woke up, rubbing her sleepy eyes. The emperor announced he was taking her to the morning court session. Jojo's heart skipped a beat. She thought she was hallucinating. The next thing she knew, the emperor had lifted her out of bed and was marching her to court.
He couldn't wait to tell everyone he had a precious daughter.
His daughter was the cutest, most adorable daughter in the world. When the court officials saw the fairy-like Juju, they all started showering her with compliments.
Looks really everything.
Court was peaceful, until a prisoner in chains was brought in. It was General Joya. The Western Chu has repeatedly lost battles against the Southern Kingdom. An incompetent general has cost the lives of 3 armies. What is your crime? The emperor thundered, intending to execute the general. Zhou didn't want to see General Zhou die. After all, he was a brilliant general. His failures weren't his fault. It was because of the spy weeping's interference, and because he had been cursed and was being controlled by someone. General Zhou was a tragic figure. His 3 sons and 1 daughter had all died on the battlefield. When his wife was captured by the enemy, to save her from dishonor, he had personally shot her with an arrow. Hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor fell silent. He had known none of this. If Guju hadn't reminded him, he would have been in the dark forever. The emperor's face grew dark, but the officials thought he was angry at Joya for his repeated losses and treasonous intent. So, they all advised the emperor to kill him. General Zhou was quickly pushed into the spotlight. Zhou fumed internally. These court officials are a bunch of jerks. Instead of helping my dad, they're egging him on to kill people. If General Zhou dies, it will break the hearts of all the military men in the kingdom, and the fall of Western Chu will be just around the corner. I really hope my dad has a clear head and understands General Zhou's loyalty and importance and doesn't kill him. Hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor's mind was clear. He patted Guju's little knee, indicating he would handle it. He then ordered the prime minister and the head of the Grand Court of Revision to thoroughly investigate the reasons for Joy Ya's defeat, and sent the head of the Imperial Hospital to treat him. But when Guju heard it was the head of the Imperial Hospital, she was unimpressed. That guy is a total hack. He only knows about women's health. He knows nothing about curses. The emperor took a deep breath and added, "Send the deputy head. The head still needs to look after the concubines in the harem." At this moment, Guju realized her dad was finally on the same page as her. She was so happy, her eyes filled with adoration. In the end, she couldn't resist and gave her dad a big smooch on the cheek. Jujo wasn't just the emperor's lucky star, she was the savior of the entire Western Chu kingdom. Relying on her thoughts, the emperor successfully rooted out another spy. In the imperial study, the emperor was overjoyed. General Zhou had been saved. Guju was also delighted, happily perched on the emperor's shoulder. Over the past few days, Guju had deeply felt the emperor's doting love, and she had grown bold enough to climb onto his head and playfully tie his hair into bows. It had to be said, Guju was quite good at tying bows. The underworld guards, before and now the emperor, had all fallen victim to her handiwork. Fu An, standing by, quickly tried to intervene. 18th Princess, this is damaging to the emperor's dignity, but the emperor loved it. No child had ever been so close to him before, and it made him feel the simple joy of being a father. After playing for a while, Guju suddenly remembered something and wondered, why did General Joe suffer so much, yet no one knew about it? Logically, with something this big, even if the general didn't say anything, my dad should have known something, right? Did someone intentionally block the news from reaching my dad's ears, hoping to use my dad's hand to quietly get rid of this great hero? Hearing this, the emperor had a realization and became alert. Guju, you go back to your mother's place for now. Father will go investigate this, and I'll come see you when I'm done. Juju exclaimed, Father is mighty and powerful. Afterward, the emperor secretly went to the general's residence. He needed to hear the situation from Joya himself. Joya hesitated. Your Majesty, you might not believe me if I tell you. It might be better not to say anything. Whether I believe it or not is up to me. Speak. Only then did Joya speak. It was Chen Wangan. He was the one who intercepted all reports about my family and military matters. Last year, during the war with the Southern Kingdom, our supplies were tampered with several times because of him. I suspect he is a spy for the Southern Kingdom. Another spy. The emperor was enraged. Zhou Ya thought his reaction meant he didn't believe him, since Chen Wangsun was seen by everyone as a loyal and dedicated official. Zhou Ya knelt and swore to find evidence to prove he was a spy. General Zhou, just rest and recover. I will find out the truth. Afterward, the emperor returned to the palace and sent out his secret agents to investigate. The agents did not disappoint, finding many secret letters between Tian Wangan and the Southern Kingdom in his home. After reading them one by one, the emperor's hands trembled with fear. What a man. Xian Wangxin. He looked so loyal, but in reality, he had practically sold the entire Western Chu Kingdom. The silver mine lost to the Southern Kingdom 2 years ago. The death of General Wen and 3,000 war horses last year. The burning of the grain supply at the beginning of this year, and the near death of General Zhou. Qian Wangxin was behind it all. With Wei Ping in the harem and Qian Wangxin in the court, how could Western Chu not fall? The fact that it had survived for 10 years was a mercy from the heavens. Thinking of this, the emperor was furious. He ordered Qian Wangxin's entire family to be executed, and his head, along with Wei Ping's, to be hung on the city gates as a warning to all. Juju is truly a great blessing for the entire Western Chu. If it weren't for her, the kingdom would have been sold, and I'd still be helping them count the money. The emperor calmed himself and asked Fuan, Where is Guju now? Reporting to your majesty, the 18th princess is with the crown prince. The Southern Kingdom's envoys will be arriving soon for peace talks, and the crown prince is in charge of receiving them. The princess is there to join in the fun. At this moment, Guju was being held by the crown prince as they studied a guide. 108 ways to deal with foreign envoys. The densely packed words were making Guju sleepy. Zia, light some refreshing incense. At the crown prince's call, Guju was instantly awake. Zia, she's here with the crown prince. Why am I reacting so strongly? Is this Zhuwei a spy too? The crown prince never imagined that his personal maid could be a spy from the Southern Kingdom. She has such an innocent face, but she's a total snake. In the original story, when Western Chu was defeated, they received the Southern Kingdom's envoys. Jia colluded with them, poisoned an envoy to fake his death, and blackmailed Western Chu out of 5 cities. Even though Western Chu won this time, Jiawei will definitely still try to poison someone to frame us. Then this victory would be for nothing. No way. I can't let them get away with just giving up land and money. Thinking of this, Guju was fuming. The crown prince panicked when he learned of the plot. It was a 1,000-year-old rule that you don't kill envoys during wartime. If what Guju said was true, not only would their victory be pointless, but he might lose his position as crown prince. Worried that Zhuwei might have tampered with the incense, he sent her away. But he couldn't alert her, so he couldn't get rid of her just yet. To stop the Southern Kingdom's plot, the crown prince racked his brain for a solution, and actually thought of drinking the poison himself. His intelligence was truly touching. The thought of dying without an antidote, without having achieved anything, without getting married and having children, and without even meeting the Miss Yuju mentioned,
filled him with regret. Just then, Guju's thoughts provided a much better solution. If we secretly get the antidote from the envoy, we can expose their scheme. Western Chu can turn the tables and maybe even make them give up more land and money. Juju was delighted with her own cleverness, while the crown prince was nearly brought to tears by his own stupidity. Joju is so smart. She's my savior. Thinking this, he planted several kisses on Guju's little cheek. Jojo's face went numb. What's wrong with the crown prince? My poor cheeks are suffering again. Worried the crown prince wouldn't be able to handle the poisoned envoy situation, Juju came up with her own plan. Although she was an orphan in her past life, she had learned traditional medicine from the director of her orphanage. If the crown prince couldn't find the antidote, she could create a universal one for him. As she was mixing a bunch of precious medicinal herbs in the courtyard, the emperor silently appeared behind her. He looked worried. Is someone sick? Concubine Li told him no one was sick. Guju just suddenly wanted to play with these things. The emperor immediately ordered, "Tell the imperial hospital to send whatever herbs the princess needs. We must make sure the princess has fun." He then went to Guju's side and asked doingly, "Juju, do you need father's help?" "Yes." Guju held up the pestle. "This is too heavy. You can do it, father." The emperor rolled up his sleeves without a second thought. Fuan quickly tried to stop him. "Your Majesty, your esteemed self, let this old servant do it." But before he could finish, the emperor was already grinding the herbs with incredible speed. Guju exclaimed in awe, "Wow, father, you're amazing!" With the father-daughter duo's combined effort, the universal antidote was finally complete. Gu was so happy, she jumped for joy. Looking at the medicine in her hand, she thought, "I, the princess, will slay all the villains in the world." "Slay, slay, slay!" The emperor picked her up. "All right, my princess, it's time to eat." He carried her to the dining table, sat her down, and said, "Princess, please be seated." Those words sounded familiar. In her past life, she had heard, "Princess, please get in the car. Princess, please have some water. Princess, please go to sleep." And so many others, but no one had ever said them to her. In this life, someone was finally treating her like a real princess. Jojo contentedly gave the emperor a kiss, and he grinned like a fool. Jojo kissed me on her own initiative. He became even more enthusiastic, bustling around her. "Princess, please take your chopsticks. Princess, please hold your bowl. Princess, please open your mouth." And Guju got lost in the chorus of princess. Concubine Li watched the loving scene between father and daughter and couldn't help but smile. With the family so happy and harmonious, who in the harem would be the next to get jealous? On this day, the envoys from the southern kingdom arrived for an audience, and a grand banquet was prepared in the palace. The emperor, ignoring all objections, brought Guju with him. The southern kingdom's envoy came forward to state his purpose, claiming they came for peace talks, and as a sign of sincerity, wanted to toast the emperor. But the emperor raised his teacup and responded authoritatively, "I have a precious daughter now. My daughter doesn't like the smell of alcohol, so I will use tea instead of wine." This move not only showed off the happiness of having a daughter, but also gave the southern kingdom a firm slap in the face. However, in the midst of this tense atmosphere, an accident occurred. The lead envoy suddenly collapsed, his lips turning black and black blood flowing from his mouth. A clear sign of poisoning. The southern kingdom's envoys erupted in chaos, accusing Western Chu of poisoning their envoy and threatening to seek justice from the Supreme Alliance. The emperor panicked and questioned the crown prince. "What is going on?" But the crown prince was confident and told the emperor not to worry. He would handle it. Guju, with her keen eye, saw something clutched in the crown prince's hand, and his confident reaction, and guessed that he must have found the antidote and was ready to expose their stage drama. The emperor understood after hearing Guju's thoughts. The other royal family members who were hearing Guju's thoughts for the first time were all completely stunned. The crown prince looked at the troublemaking envoys. "We people of Western Chu are gracious in both victory and defeat. We would never resort to poison. If you wish to ask the Supreme Alliance for justice, then by all means do so. Soon, people from the Supreme Alliance arrived. The Southern Kingdom's envoys' eyes lit up and they rushed forward crying, "Sir, you must bring us justice. The Western Shu royal family has no honor. They poisoned our master." The chief official of the Supreme Alliance, Lu Jing, confirmed that the envoy was poisoned and looked at the emperor. "The culprit must be from your Western Shu royal family. Do you have anything to say?" The Southern Kingdom's envoys chimed in, demanding they pay a heavy price. "A price?" the Crown Prince sneered. "What price?" The Southern Kingdom's envoys were arrogant, demanding not only to cancel the land and reparation payments, but also for the emperor to make a public apology. Lu Jing found this to be a reasonable solution and told the emperor to agree. The emperor laughed in disbelief. He stood up, holding Guju, "Forcing me to watch ye people of the south poison yourselves to frame my Western Chu, all because you lost a war and don't want to pay up." That's right, Guju chirped in support of her tyrant dad. The Southern Kingdom's envoys felt their scalps tingle. "Do you have any proof?" "Yes." The Crown Prince revealed the antidote he had been clutching in his hand. "I found the antidote to the poison in the Southern Kingdom's envoys' quarters." The envoy insisted the bottle and the antidote weren't theirs. The Crown Prince had anticipated they wouldn't admit it easily and had the imperial physician examine it. The physician, with his 80 years of experience, sniffed it and immediately identified it as the antidote to a poison called red thorn. This poison was exclusive to the Southern Kingdom's royal family. No one else could create it, let alone its antidote. The Crown Prince decisively handed the medicine to Liu Jing from the Alliance. Liu Jing personally administered it to the poisoned envoy, and the antidote worked instantly. The envoy woke up in less than a second. Liu Jing was amazed. It really is the antidote. He turned to the envoys and sternly questioned, "Envoys of the South, do you admit to the crime of falsely accusing Western Chu?" The envoys were speechless, and all fell to their knees, begging for mercy. Due to the Southern Kingdom's shameless act of framing them, the original reparations of land and money were now doubled. With the matter successfully resolved, Guju couldn't help but give the Crown Prince a thumbs up. Crown Prince, that was beautifully done. With a huge influx of wealth into the Western Shu treasury, the tyrant emperor was in a great mood and ordered rewards for everyone. The Crown Prince was overjoyed, scooping up his little lucky star Guju for a series of cuddles and affectionate nuzzles. However, this heavy dose of love was a bit much for little Guju, who was struggling to breathe. The tyrant emperor saw all of this, and a wave of jealousy washed over him. "Crown Prince, go investigate who was behind that poisoning incident." The Crown Prince looked back, completely baffled. "Investigate what now?" "Give me back my Guju. You've hugged her long enough." With that, he eagerly snatched his daughter back, reminding the Crown Prince to seriously look into the matter of the Southern Kingdom's spies. The Crown Prince had no choice but to obey. Having reclaimed his precious child, the tyrant emperor broke into a rare, doting smile. He stroked Guju's little head, thinking to himself, "No one is allowed to steal her from me." Little did he know, a group of royal relatives was already getting restless, plotting to get their hands on the adorable Juju. Prince Ning was the first to speak up, asking the emperor if he could take Guju back to his estate to raise for a while. "This is outrageous!" Juju fumed internally. "Do they think I'm some kind of monkey for them to pass around and gawk at?" Even though they clearly heard her internal protests, the relatives pretended not to, showering her with compliments instead. "The princess is so cute. I just want to kiss her and hug her and lift her up high." Jojo clutched her dad's robes tightly, terrified that in the next second she'd be assigned to someone else's house, like a pet monkey. "I'm not going. I can't leave my mom and my deadbeat dad." Hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor refused Prince Ning. "The princess is still young. It's not appropriate for her to leave the palace." But the emperor got flustered and blurted out, "The princess is still nursing." Still, Prince Ning wouldn't back down. He suggested bringing the wet nurse along too. "Your Majesty, you raised Duke Duan's daughter in the palace. Why can't I take the princess? You're playing favorites." Hearing this, the emperor's face turned dark.
This Prince Ning just won't quit, he thought.
Prince Ning, you are out of line.
Prince Ning shuddered and immediately dropped to his knees, begging for forgiveness.
He pleaded with his dear brother to overlook his careless words, saying he only spoke out of his deep affection for the princess. The emperor was silent for a long moment before finally saying, "You may rise." Seeing the tense atmosphere, the Grand Empress de Jaeger stepped in to smooth things over. With the emperor angry and the Grand Empress de Jaeger speaking up, no one else dared to try and claim Guju, and the mood relaxed a little. That is, until the 80-year-old Prince Su spoke up, asking the emperor for the priceless Eastern Pearl. The Eastern Pearl was an incredibly rare treasure with only one appearing every few decades, specifically reserved for the Grand Empress Dager's phoenix crown. How dare Prince Su covet something belonging to the Grand Empress Dagger? The Grand Empress Dager was not pleased. "What do you need the pearl for?" she asked. Prince Su stammered, not daring to tell the truth. But Guju knew. "It's for his 14-year-old concubine who just moved in. That concubine thinks she's all that just because she's young and pretty. She's so demanding. She probably wants this 80-year-old man to pluck the stars from the sky for her. He's going to throw his back out." The Grand Empress de Jaeger and the other royals who heard Guju's thoughts were so shocked their jaws nearly hit the floor. Even the emperor couldn't help but cough. Prince Su heard her thoughts too, and though he was surprised, he was still determined. He started pulling the "respect your elders" card, insisting on getting the pearl. Jojo clenched her little fists. "I hope my deadbeat dad doesn't agree. Otherwise, Imperial Grandmother will be humiliated, have a stroke from the anger, and who knows if she'll live or die." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. For the sake of the Grand Empress de Jaeger's health, they all stepped forward to urge the emperor to reconsider. Seeing this, Prince Su resorted to threats, declaring that if he didn't get the pearl, he would smash his head against a pillar and die right there. The emperor was so angry he didn't know what to do. He looked at the child in his arms, hoping she had a solution. Just then, Guju's stomach rumbled with hunger. The emperor quickly placed a delicate little pastry in front of her. As Juju ate, she grumbled in her mind. Prince Su is such a love-struck old fool. He's going to get all 7 of his sons killed because of her. Prince Su heard this but paid it no mind, dismissing it as nonsense. "Grandpa Prince Su, you want the Eastern Pearl, right?" Jujo asked in her sweet, childish voice. Yes, Prince Su nodded. "My father has an Eastern Pearl and can give it to you, but it will take some time." "I don't know if you can wait." I can wait." Prince Su beamed at the emperor. "Your Majesty, is what the princess said true?" The emperor instantly understood. Jujo was buying him time. He readily agreed. "I don't want to see my dear uncle die in front of me. It's just a pearl. I'll give it to you. In 20 years, I will personally deliver it to you, Prince Su." When Prince Su heard this, he almost coughed up blood. But since he had said, "I can wait," he had no choice but to leave in a huff. Jojo was still worried about the love-struck old man. That little concubine is a monster. She's going to kill one of his sons in the next 2 days. Obviously, the old man was determined not to listen. He didn't believe a word of it. A few days later, just as she predicted, Prince Su suffered the pain of a white-haired man burying his black-haired son. The eldest son had drowned by accident. He had discovered proof that the young concubine was poisoning Prince Su and was murdered for it. The concubine, Kaixia, was ambitious and planned to get rid of all of his sons so she could give the 80-year-old prince his one and only heir. The poor Prince Su was still in the dark, lost in grief. The old man, finally snapping out of his daze, suddenly remembered Guju's words. "That little concubine is a monster. She'll kill your sons." He felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He shuddered and immediately rushed to the palace to find Guju and get some answers. At that moment, Guju was busy moving her beloved Koish to a new spot. The old man hid in a corner, hesitant, regretting not listening to her before. The moment Gujo turned around, she spotted him acting suspiciously. To her surprise, the old man scurried away and disappeared. The adorable Guju was dumbfounded. Juju doesn't eat people. Why is that old man running? She wondered. He probably feels like he'll lose face asking a 5-year-old for help. So he ran away. However, the old man's hasty retreat deeply hurt Guju's young heart, making her question her very existence.
Is it because I look fierce that Grandpa Prince Su ran away in fear?
Concubine Li was at a loss for words. Just then, the tyrant emperor suddenly appeared, picked up the adorable Guju, and explained, Prince Su had an urgent matter to attend to at home. Jojo stopped worrying and snuggled into her deadbeat dad's arms, enjoying his warm presence. She couldn't help but say, Father, you smell so good. Jojo wants to smell good too. Hearing this, the emperor, without a second thought, ordered that his personal, exclusive airwood incense be sent to Guju. Fuan's eyes widened in shock, but he was also happy for Guju. For a princess to enjoy the treatment of an emperor, this was a first in history. The emperor shot him a cold look. What are you smiling about? Go. This servant will go at once. The emperor wished he could give the entire world to his lovely daughter. Shuju didn't want anything else for now, but she was already planning to make her deadbeat dad bleed his treasury dry later. Meanwhile, noble consort Jiang and concubine Jin, green with envy over the favor shown to Guju and her mother, began to plot again. They planned to bring the 3-year-old Princess Anlei into the palace to usurp Guju's place in the emperor's heart, hoping to make concubine Li lose favor and be sent back to the cold palace. On this day, Guju was eagerly waiting for her deadbeat dad. But after a long time, there was still no sign of him. Her little face fell, and she asked her mother disappointedly, Is father not coming today? Concubine Li smiled and comforted her. He'll come. Your father won't break his promise. Hearing this, Guju immediately cheered up and even made a bold declaration. When father comes, I'll have to punish him by making him tell me 2 stories. Just as she said this, a palace maid came to report, 18th princess, the emperor invites you to the imperial garden. Jojo's eyes lit up. She wondered if her deadbeat dad had prepared a surprise. So she took her mother's hand and happily skipped towards the imperial garden. When they got there, they saw the tyrant emperor in the distance, talking to Princess Anlei, and his face looked incredibly grim. Just as concubine Li was about to take Guju over, noble consort Jiang blocked their path. Noble consort Jiang had arranged this little drama, specifically to let concubine Li and Guju witness their own downfall. She deliberately provoked them. Princess Anlei is going to steal the emperor's affection for Guju. You two can just wait to be thrown back into the cold palace. Her words were like daggers, and concubine Li's heart pounded with panic. It wasn't that she was afraid of losing favor, but she couldn't bear the thought of Guju suffering in that rundown place again. Jojo squeezed concubine Li's hand. Don't worry, mother. I won't lose his favor. Then she looked at noble consort Jiang as if she were a fool. This consort Jiang is so bold, bringing just anyone into the palace without checking their background. Princess Anlei is the daughter of Prince Qin, my deadbeat dad's mortal enemy. Noble consort Jiang is just asking to be punished. The 10th and 11th princes heard Guju's thoughts and immediately gained confidence. They confronted noble consort Jiang. Noble consort, please be careful with your words. Noble consort, are you still half asleep? You're talking nonsense. Noble consort Jiang's face turned green with anger. After catching her breath, she retorted, Princess Anlei is about to win the emperor's favor. Don't get too full of yourselves. Just as her words faded, a furious roar echoed through the garden. Get out, all of you. Get out of the palace. Don't let me see you again. Princess Anlei, oblivious, even tried to drive Guju away. That ugly monster isn't as pretty as me at all. Uncle Emperor should do on me more. Hearing this, the tyrant emperor flew into a rage and immediately ordered Princess Anlei to be given 50 slaps. Princess Annie was so scared she dropped to her knees and begged for mercy. The emperor's face was dark as he ordered Fuan to find out which idiot was responsible for this mess. Fuan quickly returned with the news, Your Majesty, It was noble consort Jiang who summoned her to the palace for a chat. The emperor instantly understood noble consort Jiang's malicious intentions, and without hesitation sentenced her to a lifetime stay in the cold palace. Just then, the emperor spotted Guju and her mother nearby, and cheerfully ran over to pick Guju up. "Guju, did you come to find father?" Jojo played along sweetly. "Father Jojo missed you so much." Meanwhile, noble consort Young, being dragged away, was pale with fear and screaming that she had been framed. Idiot. The emperor couldn't be bothered with her and signaled for the imperial guards to hurry up and take her away. Concubine Jin, hiding in a corner of the garden, watched noble consort Jing being taken away and laughed at her for being all beauty and no brains. The emperor calmed himself and looked at Juju in his arms, asking with concern if she was scared. Jojo smiled and said, "With father here, Jojo isn't afraid of anything." But in the next second, the little girl's face fell again. She was worried about her mother. "Unfortunately, my deadbeat dad doesn't know about mom's insecurity." After hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor's heart ached. He pulled concubine Li into his arms and gently comforted her. "You must have been scared. Don't worry. I will always protect you." A warmth spread through concubine Li's chest, and she was so moved she couldn't speak. Jojo was overjoyed and couldn't help but shower her dad with compliments in her mind. "Deadbeat dad is amazing. Today, my deadbeat dad's aura is 10 feet tall." The sight of this harmonious and loving family of three made a certain green-eyed monster start to stir again. The tyrant emperor punished himself by agreeing to tell Guju stories for a month, which made her ecstatic. Yay! Just then, a commotion erupted outside, and cries of help shattered the cheerful atmosphere. Fu An hurried out to check and saw Prince Su and his third son. Prince Su was being carried into the palace unconscious. Worried about scaring Guju, the emperor quickly comforted her before going out to see what was happening. It turned out that Prince Su's second son had died unexpectedly half an hour ago. He had fainted on the spot, but before passing out, he had instructed his son to find Princess Guju. Soon after, Prince Su slowly regained consciousness and begged to see the princess. Seeing this, the emperor guessed that Prince Su must have heard Guju's thoughts and now believed in her ability to see the future, which was why he had rushed here for help. But the emperor didn't want anyone else to know about Guju's ability. He met with Prince Su alone, made him swear an oath not to reveal Guju's secret, and then helped him get rid of the evil concubine. Prince Su, though reluctant to part with his young concubine, painfully agreed for the sake of his remaining sons. In the end, with the help of the emperor's imperial guards, the concubine and her accomplices were all eliminated, and peace returned to the prince's estate, and Guju became a living bodhisattva in Prince Su's heart. If his son had a cold, he'd seek out Guju. If his son lost a fight with the neighbor's dog, he'd seek out Guju. If his son got a beating from his wife, he'd still seek out Guju. Juju's ears were about to fall off. She cried and hid in the emperor's arms. "I'm so miserable. Boo-hoo! Can someone please do something about Prince Su?" That old man comes to the palace every other day to ramble about his family drama. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. After hearing Guju's thoughts, the emperor, without a second thought, issued an order banning Prince Su from visiting Guju in the palace. Hearing this, Guju was overjoyed. "Guju, for your birthday, Father is going to throw you a huge celebration." Jojo's eyes immediately lit up. "Does that mean everyone will come to the palace to celebrate with me?" Seeing Guju so happy, the emperor was also filled with joy. Little did he know, the clever little girl was actually thinking about the crown prince's marriage. If everyone comes to the palace, Jujo thought, then the crown prince's true love, Yuan Ying, will show up. I really hope father can betroth Yuan Ying to the crown prince. The emperor heard the name Yuan Ying and felt it was a bit familiar, but he couldn't recall which minister's daughter she was. So he simply put the crown prince in charge of organizing Guju's birthday banquet. Guju was eagerly looking forward to the banquet, her mind full of what kind of gifts everyone would bring. I hope there are lots of snacks from outside the palace. I barely got to eat any special snacks in my past life. Hearing this thought, the emperor's heart ached.
feeling as if something had fiercely squeezed it.
He wished he could make all the chefs in the imperial kitchen learn to make all of Guju's favorite snacks, like ding-ding candy, hair rock sugar cakes, malt candy, and candied hawthorns. Hearing this, Guju's mouth was practically watering. Seeing this, concubine Li smiled and advised the emperor, "Don't spoil Guju too much." The emperor looked at the adorable Guju in his arms and said doingly, "Juju is my daughter. If I don't spoil her, who will?" Juju's heart warmed, and she couldn't resist giving the emperor a big smooch on the cheek. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of Guju's birthday banquet. Concubine Li woke up early in the morning to wash and dress her. The little girl was still sleepy, but when she saw herself in the mirror, all her drowsiness vanished. She was so stunned she couldn't speak for a moment. Who's this little fairy? How can she be so pretty? Jo, the little birthday girl, was feeling a bit narcissistic. She kept praising her own beauty in her mind. Even when making funny faces, she thought she looked incredibly good. Concubine Li was amused by Jugu's smug thoughts and reminded her it was time to go to the banquet. Mommy is also very pretty today, like a big fairy. Joja's eyes widened as she looked at her elegant and beautiful mother. The mother and daughter soon arrived at the Delan Hall, where the banquet was being held. It was still early before the banquet started, and Guju didn't want her beautiful mother to just wait there. I have to hide her so she can make a stunning entrance for everyone later. So Guju started acting cute, convincing Concubine Li to go to a side hall for some tea. Concubine Li happened to be thirsty, so she nodded in agreement. Before leaving, she reminded Guju not to run around. Juju puffed out her chest and said, "It's okay. I'm going to find my brothers." In a flash, Juju was zipping around Delan Hall like a little rocket, actually looking for Yuaning. When she couldn't find her in the hall, she decided to go outside. Just as she stepped out of the main hall, she saw Funky Wei bullying someone not far away. She had pushed a little girl about her own age to the ground and was kicking her viciously, all while spewing insults. Jojo immediately recognized the little girl on the ground as her little cousin Nan Yan. Jojo shouted, rushing over like a gust of wind. "This fungi has gone too far, bullying my cousin right under my nose." Jojo spread her arms to shield her cousin. "Yuanxiang, don't be afraid. I'm here to protect you." Funi was puzzled. "Why is this Guju meddling again?" Guju shouted at her. "How dare you bully this princess's little cousin?" Fun Taiwei scoffed and mocked Yuanyang for being a poor, unloved child, even suspecting Guju was making things up to save her. Jojo fiercely retorted, "I may be little, but I'm not stupid. I wouldn't mistake my own relative." She then warned Feng Yue not to bully Yuanxiang again, or she would be sorry. But Funai didn't take her seriously at all. Jojo furiously demanded that Fungai apologize to Yuanxiang, but Funky stubbornly argued, "She started it. Why should I apologize?" Yuanchan quickly explained that she hadn't started anything. Jojo knew Fungai was playing the victim first and wasn't going to put up with it. "If you don't apologize, I'll have my father throw you out of the palace." Fungai refused, which was a direct challenge to Guju's authority. Jojo shouted, "Guards!" A group of people behind Juju immediately stepped forward, awaiting her orders. Jojo pointed at Funky Wei. "This Funky Wei has viciously beaten this princess's little cousin for no reason. Throw her out of the palace for me." Several imperial guards swarmed over, picked up Funkai like a little chick, and carried her towards the palace gates. Yuansheng smiled and thanked Guju for her help. On the other side, the banquet was about to start. The Grand Empress dagger had already arrived, but the little birthday girl was nowhere to be seen. The tyrant emperor immediately sent Fuan to find concubine Li and Guju. Just then, Duke Duan and his wife burst into the hall, crying, "Your Majesty, Your Highness, you must seek justice for me." The Grand Empress dagger was confused. "What happened?" Duke Duan said aggressively. "I would like to ask, Your Majesty and Your Highness, if someone forcibly throws my daughter, Feng Kaiwei, out of the palace, what crime is that?" Duke Duan twisted the truth, claiming that the 18th princess was unreasonable and had thrown his daughter Feng Kaiwei out of the palace simply because she didn't like her. Hearing this, the emperor's face darkened, and he asked the duke, "Are you sure she was thrown out just because of a dislike?" Many of the ministers in the hall who didn't know the whole story began to speak up for Duke Duan. This made the Duke even more confident. I implore the Emperor to punish Guju severely. The Emperor glanced sideways at the Duke. You're asking for punishment right off the bat. Have you even figured out what happened? Compared to the Duke's one-sided story, he trusted his own child more. So, he ordered someone to bring Guju to him. A moment later, a eunuch led Guju back. She was supporting a limping Nanjung as they entered. The people around them looked on with sympathy. The person who hurt her is so cruel, her leg is practically broken. Duke Duan coughed guilty and said, Your Majesty, since the princess is here, please punish her severely. The Emperor glared at the Duke and then turned to Guju. Your Uncle Duke says that you threw Funky out of the palace for no reason. Is that true? Joju looked at the Duke's annoying face and couldn't help but grumble in her mind. Who threw his daughter out on purpose? Fungi brought it on herself. Jojo hid Yuan Shang behind her, her eyes red with grievance, and said, Father, look at my little cousin Yuan Shang. I saw it with my own eyes. Fungi and her maid beat my little cousin like this for no reason. A nearby imperial physician, unable to watch any longer, added, Your Majesty, Miss Nan's injuries are not light. Her bones are hurt. If it weren't for the 18th princess's help, she might have been permanently crippled. Hearing this, the Emperor flew into a rage. He immediately fined Duke Duan a year's salary and ordered him to go back home for house arrest. Jojo was very satisfied with this outcome and cheered in her mind. Deadbeat dad is mighty. With the matter resolved, Guju's birthday banquet began. Many ministers and concubines gave Gu birthday gifts. Guju looked at the mountain of presents in front of her, her eyes wide. It wasn't until her deadbeat dad asked, Juju, where's your mother? That she snapped back to reality. Oh my god, I forgot about mommy. Just then, concubine Li slowly walked out. She looked exceptionally elegant today. The tyrant emperor's eyes were glued to her. He quickly went up to her and said with a smile, Concubine Li, the truth about your family's treason has been revealed. Your father and brother have been reinstated to their official positions. You'll be able to have a family reunion soon. Concubine Li was so excited she almost lost her composure and cried. The clever Guju reminded her mother, Today is a happy day. You should smile. Concubine Li smiled and nodded. Yes, a happy day. The tyrant emperor looked at the bright smiles on concubine Li and Guju's faces and suddenly felt that nothing in the world could compare to their smiles. While the banquet was in full swing, Guju heard a eunuch report to the crown prince. Yuan Ying is climbing a tree in the imperial garden, spying on men outside. Jojo immediately remembered the plot in the book where someone deliberately framed Yuan Ying to make the crown prince misunderstand her. Ju didn't want the crown prince to be fooled by bad people again, so she quickly followed him. Crown prince, I'll go with you. The crown prince took Guju's hand and walked towards the imperial garden. When they arrived, Yuan Ying was still in the tree. From below, it did look like she was climbing the tree to spy on men, but she was actually holding a bird in her hands, trying to put it back in its nest. Your Highness, you're finally here! Nanba, Nan Yuanxiang's half-sister, came up to the crown prince. I asked you to come here because Miss Yu is spying on men, which is improper. I ask your Highness to punish her severely. Yuan Ying, who was in the tree, saw the crown prince she had admired since childhood, and her heart panicked. Her foot slipped and she fell right out of the tree. At that critical moment, the crown prince stretched out his arms and caught her securely. Yuan Ying fell right into the crown prince's arms. Jojo watched from the side, her heart screaming, I'm shipping it! I'm shipping it. And someone nearby was so jealous, their eyes turned red. She was full of gratitude for him, and seeing the man she had admired since childhood made her so excited she could barely speak. This gave the scheming girl a chance to slander her, accusing her of climbing a tree to spy on men, which was improper. Jojo, standing nearby, was so anxious she stomped her feet thinking, Crown Prince, don't be deceived by that evil person and misunderstand Miss Yu. Coincidentally, the Crown Prince also wanted to hear what Miss Yu had to say, but Yan Ying stammered for a long time without getting a word out. Jojo knew in her heart that she was just shy in front of her crush.
I hope the Crown Prince believes her.
The Crown Prince heard Goo's thoughts and understood. Instead of thinking Yuan Ying was guilty, he found her cautious demeanor in front of him quite cute. The Crown Prince walked up to her and said softly, "Miss Yu, don't worry. As long as you explain what happened, I will believe you." Hearing this, Yuan Ying was overjoyed and finally explained in a small voice, "I saw an injured baby bird and wanted to help it back to its nest, so I climbed the tree." After hearing her explanation, the Crown Prince couldn't help but admire her and praised, "Miss Yu is truly kind-hearted." The scheming girl, watching from the side, was green with envy and jumped out to cause trouble again. "Everyone saw you spying. What proof do you have that what you're saying is true?" Zhou was fuming. "Why are you everywhere?" she thought. She spread her small arms and shielded her brother and sister-in-law. "I saw it! I saw Miss Yu holding an injured little bird!" The scheming girl still wouldn't give up, and even accused Juju of having bad eyesight. Seeing the scheming girl bullying Guju, the Crown Prince flew into a rage and immediately ordered her to be dragged away and slapped 50 times. With that big trouble out of the way, Gujo could go back to happily shipping her new favorite couple. She tugged on the Crown Prince's sleeve and said sweetly, "Crown Prince, I really like Miss Yu. Can I stay with her for a little longer?" The Crown Prince smiled, doing, "Of course." The Crown Prince turned and invited Yuan Ying to return to the banquet hall with them, and she gladly accepted. The Crown Prince picked up Guju and walked ahead, with Yuan Ying following quietly behind. Jojo admired Yuan Ying's stunning beauty up close, and had a bold idea. "I really want to touch her face." As soon as the thought appeared, her little hand unconsciously reached out. Yuan Ying saw Guju's outstretched hand and thought she was asking for a birthday gift. So, she took off her favorite hairpin and handed it to Guju, saying, "There are many more gifts waiting for you in the hall." "Sure." Jay was stunned, her heart crying out. The pretty big sister misunderstood me. If I explained that I wanted to touch her face, wouldn't that make me seem like a creep? The Crown Prince heard Guju's conflicted thoughts and decided to step in. He leaned close to Yuan Ying's ear and whispered, "I want to touch your face." Hearing this, Yuan Ying's face flushed bright red and her throat tightened with nervousness. "Crown Prince, you want to touch my face? That's probably not appropriate, is it?" The Crown Prince was embarrassed by her response and immediately corrected himself. "It's Guju who wants to touch your face now." Yuan Ying was even more mortified. She didn't dare to look at the Crown Prince, bit her lip, and said, "I'm sorry. My father is still waiting inside. I'll be going now." With that, she ran off. Jojo watched Yuan Ying run away, completely bewildered. "Crown Prince, what did you say to scare her away?" The Crown Prince gave a guilty smile. "I said I wanted to touch her face, and she ran." Hearing this, Guju's heart sank. The pretty big sister must hate me now. She ran away, just because I wanted to touch her face. The more she thought about it, the more wronged she felt. Her little lips trembled, and she burst into tears. With a loud, "Seeing this, the Crown Prince quickly tried to comfort her. "Guju, don't cry. Nobody dislikes you. It's my fault." Just then, someone picked Juju up. The tyrant emperor saw his precious daughter crying so hard, and his face immediately darkened. What exactly happened here? Without a second thought, ordered him to reflect on his actions. The emperor held Guju and, along with concubine Li, tried to console her for a long time. But Guju's tears flowed like an open floodgate. At his wit's end, the emperor gave her a big chicken leg. "You must be hungry after crying for so long. Eat up, then you can cry some more." Guju was momentarily stunned. What a novel way to comfort someone. But seeing how much her deadbeat dad cared, she picked up the chicken leg and started gnawing on it, and her tears finally stopped. The emperor looked at Juju dotingly and asked softly, "Did the Crown Prince bully you?" Jojo shook her head like a rattler, indicating it had nothing to do with him. She couldn't very well say that she was upset because she wanted to touch a pretty big sister's face and got rejected. That would be too embarrassing. Thinking of this, Juju quickly got up, dodged her deadbeat dad's questioning, and marched off to find Yuaning with only one thought in her mind. "I must get on her good side." She didn't care if her dad could sleep soundly at night or not. In no time, Jojo spotted Yuaning and was about to run over when she suddenly bumped into a wall of muscle. Looking up, she saw the first prince, who had been away at war for years. The first prince looked at Juju with a blank expression. So, you're the little 18 who dresses as a girl? Jojo quickly and respectfully bowed and greeted him, but in her heart she was thinking, the first prince is so tragic. In 10 years, when the Western Chu kingdom falls, his head gets chopped off on the battlefield. When the first prince heard Guju's words, his face instantly darkened, and he roared, "You're talking nonsense!" Jojo looked wronged and mumbled, "I didn't say anything. I just bowed." The people around them were also confused, not knowing why the first prince was so angry. Seeing that things were getting awkward, the first prince could only turn and leave. Guju made a funny face at him, and she had intended to kindly remind him to be careful not to fall and knock out his front teeth. But the first prince was arrogant and thought Juju was spouting nonsense. "I've practiced martial arts for years. How could I fall so easily?" But who would have thought that in the next second, he would step on his long robe and fall flat on his face. To make matters worse, the tyrant emperor heard the commotion and came over. "What's all this noise?" The first prince scrambled to his feet, his front teeth knocked out and slurred, "Father!" He was filled with regret. If only I had listened to Guju. He was afraid that his father would now look down on him. Guju, watching the first prince, felt a little sorry for him. After all, he had made great contributions in battle, and she couldn't let her deadbeat dad have a bad impression of him. So Guju rushed to her dad and pleaded for the first prince. "Father, brother has been at war for years and isn't used to wearing long robes. It's not his fault he fell because they don't fit." After hearing Guju's words, the emperor immediately issued an order. From now on, at palace banquets, military officials are not required to wear long robes. He then told the first prince to go and get treated. The first prince was pleasantly surprised, not expecting Guju to forgive him and speak up for him. For a moment, he actually found this little brother more likable than a little girl. Although there was a small hiccup, it couldn't stop Juju from finding her pretty big sister. Gu ran up to Yuan Ying and asked eagerly, "Sister Yu, can I sit next to you?" Yuan Ying smiled and nodded. "Of course, princess. Feel free. Your Highness, are you hungry? Would you like some dessert?" Zhou waved her hand, saying she wasn't hungry. For a child, a big chicken leg was more than enough. Yuan Ying then invited Guju to watch the song and dance performance with her, adding, "The Southern Kingdom sent dancers today because they can't afford the reparations. They're also sending an 8 or 9-year-old tribute prince." Hearing this, Guju immediately became serious, her mind racing. This tribute prince from the Southern Kingdom, could he be the male lead from the book, who eventually unites the world and marries Funky Wei? If he's here, aren't we all doomed? Juju was worried that the tribute prince would destroy the Western Chu kingdom, just like in the book, and she wanted to meet him first. But Yuan Ying told her that only the tyrant emperor knew where the tribute prince was being held. Jojo was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, but she couldn't bear to ruin the birthday banquet everyone had so carefully prepared for her. So she gritted her teeth and endured until the banquet was over, then rushed to find her deadbeat dad to get some answers. Jojo marched up to the tyrant emperor, but before she could even open her mouth, he spoke first. "Go check on your first brother." In reality, his intentions were elsewhere. He just wanted to find an excuse to spend more time with his precious Guju. A short while later, the emperor carrying Guju arrived at the quarters of the first prince's mother, noble consortion. "Greetings, your majesty." "Greetings, father." As soon as the words were spoken, Guju wriggled out of the emperor's arms and ran to the first prince to check on him. The emperor's vat of 82-year-old vinegar immediately tipped over. "Why is my Guju only thinking about that stinky boy?" he grumbled to himself. As for the first prince, his face flushed bright red, and he didn't dare to look Guju in the eye. He was still incredibly embarrassed about his previous attitude. Noble consort Jian, watching from the side, smiled and stepped in to smooth things over. "Thank you for your concern, princess. The bleeding has stopped. Well, find some suitable materials to fix his teeth later." Hearing this, Guju couldn't help but giggle to herself. Big brother is such a magnificent general, but because of a few missing teeth,
He's acting as shy as a little princess.
The first prince heard Guju's inner thoughts loud and clear, and immediately shouted in frustration, "A care about these stupid teeth?" His outburst scared Gujo so much that tears started to well up in her eyes.
Is Big Brother opening his mouth so wide to eat Guju? The first prince was completely flustered and didn't know how to explain himself. At this critical moment, the tyrant emperor had to step in. He scooped up Guju, protecting the crying child in his arms, then sternly admonished the first prince before turning to leave. The first prince would have to wait until his teeth were fixed to mend his relationship with Guju. On the way back, Guju pestered her deadbeat dad, repeatedly making him promise not to hold a grudge against her big brother. The emperor, annoyed by her persistence, finally gave his word. "I won't." Only then did Guju breathe a sigh of relief. Seeing Guju so concerned about the first prince, the emperor felt as sour as a lemon. Next, Guju asked the emperor seriously about the tribute prince from the southern kingdom. The emperor, worried about Guju's safety, advised her to stay away from him. Jojo smiled sweetly and said, "Then Daddy has to tell me where he is, so I know how to avoid him." Jojo knew in her heart that this tribute prince was connected to the fall of the Western Chu kingdom. Hearing the words, "fall of the kingdom," the emperor's heart skipped a beat. He had wanted Guju to grow up carefree, so he had never dared to ask her about the kingdom's fate. But now, it seemed that if this matter wasn't resolved, Guju would be constantly worried. After some thought, the emperor finally told Guju that the tribute prince was being held in the tribute prince's residence. The next day, Guju secretly went to the tribute prince's residence. It was as desolate as the cold palace. No wonder her deadbeat dad had repeatedly warned her not to come alone last night. But Guju was a bit of a rebel. The more he told her not to come, the more she wanted to. As soon as she reached the gate, she was stopped by 2 guards. "The tribute prince's residence is off limits. Princess, please go back." Jojo blinked her big, watery eyes at the guards. "It was father who allowed me to come." When the guards heard it was the emperor's order, they didn't dare to stop her. But when they offered to accompany her for protection, Guju firmly refused and marched into the residence alone with a swagger, thinking, "The tribute prince is only 8 or 9 years old. He shouldn't be able to hurt me." Just as she was passing a corner in the front courtyard, she suddenly saw a small, thin figure kneeling in the snow. Joju's heart skipped a beat. Could that be the male lead? Dang? Jojo quickly ran up to him and told him to get up. Daijang's body leaned back slightly, as if in resistance. From the guards, Juju learned that this was her tyrant father's way of establishing his authority and intimidating the southern kingdom by punishing Daijang, making him kneel for a full month. Juju thought to herself, Daijang is just a poor pawn used by the southern kingdom. If he keeps kneeling like this, he'll end up with chronic joint problems. No wonder the original book said that after the fall of the Western Chu kingdom, Daijang had the legs of all the royal family members chopped off. The grudge must have started here. To prevent the Western Chu kingdom from meeting that tragic end, Guju decided to have a good talk with her tyrant father first. Before leaving, she held Daijang's cold hand and promised that she would convince her father to retract the punishment. "Wait for me. I will definitely come back." At that moment, a flicker of warmth seemed to touch Daijang's frozen heart. But in the next instant, he mocked himself. What am I hoping for? She's just making an excuse to leave. A short while later, Guju ran to the imperial study. "Daddy!" The tyrant emperor's face lit up when he saw his precious Guju. He smiled so wide his mouth almost reached his ears and scooped her up. "Why did you come all of a sudden? Did you miss Daddy?" Then he playfully squished and poked Guju's little cheeks. But when he saw her face was dirty, his smile instantly vanished. "Did someone bully you?" After being subjected to her tyrant father's forced affection, Guju managed to squeeze out 3 words. I'm fine." She looked at the emperor seriously. "Daddy, I heard you ordered the tribute prince to kneel for a month." Hearing this, the emperor was furious, thinking the tribute prince had done something to Guju. Guju quickly explained that it wasn't the tribute prince who had bullied her. She just didn't want her dad to punish him by making him kneel anymore. But the emperor insisted that the southern kingdom had brought this upon themselves, and if he didn't show them who was boss,
They would only look down on the Western Chu kingdom in the future.
Jojo didn't understand all this political maneuvering.
She only knew that doing this would make Dijang hate them, and the Western Chu kingdom would surely face his retaliation 1,000 times over in the future. After all, Jang was the chosen one, the main character. When he eventually united the world, the Western Chu kingdom would be finished. The emperor had no idea that this tribute prince was such a crucial figure. He thought about it and agreed that just making him kneel wasn't very effective. Guju thought her dad was going to let Dijang off the hook, but then the emperor said, "We should just kill him." Guju was so scared, her diapers nearly got wet. She quickly advised her tyrant father to think twice. If word got out, the Western Two Kingdom would be in the wrong. Besides, Dijang had the main character's plot armor. He wouldn't be so easy to kill. This would only create more hatred. The emperor heard Guju's thoughts and couldn't help but think of himself. He too was once the chosen one, with many people plotting against him, but in the end, he not only survived to become emperor, but also dealt with all of them. This was fate. The emperor was silent for a long time. Gujo added, "Let's be merciful today, for a better future. It's not good to have someone in the palace who hates us. I really don't want anyone to be in danger." After hearing Guju's reasoning, the emperor finally relented and let Dijang go. Juju was so happy, she jumped for joy, exclaiming, "Thank you, Daddy!" At that moment, Dijang, who was still kneeling, kept replaying Guju's adorable face and determined words in his mind, his heart a mix of emotions. Suddenly, the sound of "Welcome, Princess," reached him. Dijang was stunned. He couldn't believe that Guju had actually come back. Jojo ran towards Dijang, overjoyed and couldn't wait to tell him. "Little brother, father has already canceled your punishment. You can get up now." Looking at the sweet, chubby little princess, Dijang felt the dark emotions that had been brewing inside him slowly dissipate, but he couldn't help but wonder, can I really trust her? Seeing Dang still on the ground, Juju quickly called for an imperial physician to check his legs, worried about any long-term effects. The physician hurried over, but as he was about to touch him, Dijang flinched like a startled rabbit, refusing to be touched. Joja quickly leaned in and coaxed him softly. "Little brother, don't be afraid. The physician will make you better." Dajang finally cooperated with the physician's examination. Luckily, the injuries were only superficial and would heal after a few days of applying ointment. Hearing this, Juju was so happy she could have jumped for joy. That's great. That's great. A weight was lifted from her heart. Thank goodness his legs are fine. Everyone's legs are safe now. Next, Juju, acting like a little adult, took DJ's hand and led him inside, saying, "Come on, I brought lots of delicious food." The table inside was filled with delicacies. Jojo looked at Dijang's thin frame, and her heart ached. She had specially ordered all this from the imperial kitchen to help him get his strength back. Dijang looked at the feast on the table and felt a warmth spread through him. But then he remembered the tyrant emperor's previous threats, and he immediately sobered up. How could that old fox let me off just because of this little girl? He's probably up to something. Is he trying to use this little girl to get rid of me? Dijang's mind was racing with suspicion. He even suspected the food was poisoned, and was about to discreetly use his silver thumb ring to test it when Guju wasn't looking. Guju noticed Jang's strange expression, and her mind started worrying. A moment later, she remembered the imperial edict she had gotten from her father, and quickly had a eunuch read it aloud. The eunuch announced in a high-pitched voice, "The tribute prince from the southern kingdom is hereby exempt from kneeling and reflection. His food and lodging shall be of the same standard as the imperial harem, and he shall not be neglected." The Jang couldn't believe his ears. Is this real? I don't have to kneel anymore, and I can eat properly from now on? It all felt like a dream, a beautiful dream woven just for him by this little girl. "Little brother, hurry up and eat," Guju said, grabbing a big chicken leg and stuffing it in her mouth. She ate until her face was greasy, mumbling, "The imperial kitchen's cooking is so good." Seeing Guju's greedy eating, Jang couldn't help but chuckle. Juju blushed, so embarrassed she could have dug 10 autumn water residences with her toes. "You eat too. I've already tasted it for you. It's delicious." Dejunk smiled and nodded. "All right, let's eat together." With that, Dijung completely let down his guard around Juju,
knowing that she genuinely cared for him. After a while, the gluttonous Juju wanted to eat some shrimp, but her little hands were clumsy and she couldn't peel them properly.
Dajang saw this and immediately peeled a large shrimp for her.
Here, eat this. Jojo took the shrimp, her face blooming into a smile. Thank you, little brother. You eat too. They ate together, feeding each other, and their bond grew closer. As night fell, Djang had survived his first perilous day in this strange palace. His attendant reminded him, "Your Highness, we must still be wary of that old fox, the Emperor of Western Chu. He hates our southern kingdom and wouldn't let us off so easily just because of a little princess's words." "I'm afraid the little princess being nice to you is part of a scheme." Djang cut his attendant off. He saw things clearly. The adults of Western Chu might have ill intentions, but the little princess didn't. Dajang wouldn't allow anyone to speak ill of the little princess. She was the first person in this world to ever care about him. For years, Djang had endured bullying, scorn, and exploitation. His heart was scarred, and he had lost all hope. But now, for the first time, he felt a spark of anticipation. He looked forward to seeing the little princess again. This morning, Guju had just woken up, rubbing her sleepy eyes when she saw 3 enlarged faces staring straight at her. She let out a little "Awoo!" in fright. Her brothers were cute, but this was a bit much for anyone to handle. First thing in the morning, the crown prince quickly apologized and sentenced himself to copying scriptures as punishment. Joju's heart softened, and she forgave her brothers. The crown prince paused and then asked, "Juju, do you want to go out of the palace for a walk?"
Yes.
Juju was overjoyed. She had been wanting to see the world outside for a long time, but she was also curious why the crown prince specifically wanted to take her out. Just then, her 10th and 11th brothers started whispering to each other. The crown prince wants to propose to Yuaning, but he's afraid General Yu's temper will get in the way. He's hoping that bringing little Guju along might help. Hearing this, Juju looked at the crown prince with a wounded expression. "Crown prince, you're using me." The crown prince looked a bit embarrassed and coughed twice. "That's only one of the reasons. Jojo, don't you really like Miss Yu?
Maybe this time you'll get to touch her face.
That hit Juju right where it mattered. Really? Really? What if I can't? The crown prince puffed out his chest and promised that if she couldn't, he would let her ride him like a horse. The temptation of riding a horse was too great, and Guju agreed without a second thought. In her mind, she couldn't lose either way. Before they left, the crown prince promised again that he would definitely let her touch Miss Yu's face. Little did he know he would soon be eating his words. The group stood in front of the Yu residence, staring at the tightly shut vermilion gate, their faces filled with shock. The crown prince was so embarrassed he could have dug 10 eastern palaces with his toes. Jojo thought to herself, "Looks like I'll have to find a way to win over this General Yu." She suddenly remembered reading in the book that after retiring from the battlefield, General Yu really missed the taro he used to eat with his brothers, but now taro was rare in the capital. If the crown prince could get some taro, maybe General Yu would open the door. Juju's eyes darted around, and she quickly said to the crown prince, "Crown prince, let's go to the West Market to buy some gifts."
Maybe that will work.
The crown prince heard Juju's words and smiled knowingly. Juju is so smart. I heard General Yu loves taro. Let's go look for some there. However, the road to the West Market was not as easy as they had imagined. Little Guju was exhausted. Fortunately, their efforts paid off, and they finally bought a sack of taro from a vendor. The group then returned to the general's residence. The attendant knocked on the door again. "His Highness has brought General Yu, his favorite taro. Please let us in." Hearing the word taro, the servant immediately and politely invited them into the front hall to wait while he went to inform his master. A short while later, the servant announced in a loud voice, "General Yu has arrived." General Yu strode in. Although he had retired, the rugged aura honed on the battlefield was still palpable, commanding respect. Suddenly his gaze locked onto Guju, making her shudder. "Why is this old man looking at me like that?" she wondered. Then General Yu's face broke into a smile like an old chrysanthemum. "The princess is here too. Why didn't you inform me earlier?" Then he saw the taro he had been craving for so long.
and his eyes lit up.
Guju, seeing her chance, pleaded in her sweet voice for him to grant the crown prince's request.
Hearing this, the smile on General Yu's face vanished instantly. If you are here to propose marriage, then you should give up that idea. Right now.
Jojo's heart sank. Is my favorite couple going to break up? Just like that?
Joju was utterly confused.
My crown prince brother is so outstanding. What's not to like? General Yu, however, looked calm and spoke slowly. His Highness, the Crown Prince, is undoubtedly a man of great talent. But I have already chosen a son-in-law, Lupe, the son of the Minister of Works. He is a gentleman worthy of my daughter's hand. I hope your Highness will find another match. The Crown Prince's pupils contracted in shock. He was about to protest when he heard Guju grumbling in her mind.
What kind of gentleman is Lupe? He's just a lyrist brute who bullies men and women alike. If the Crown Prince can let Grandpa Yu see his ugly true colors, he'll definitely cut off this toxic engagement.
Jojo was struggling with how to tell the Crown Prince, as the content was a bit much for a 5-year-old.
Sensing her difficulty, the Crown Prince broke the silence. These topics are too boring. How about I take you out to buy some toys? Jojo immediately nodded eagerly.
Yes, I heard the bamboo dragonflies at the night market are really fun. General Yu, seeing it was getting late, was very worried about Guju's safety. Jojo blinked her big, innocent eyes at the general and said sweetly, Grandpa Yu is so strong. You can definitely protect me. Please come with us.
The usually decisive general was completely won over by Guju's cuteness and finally nodded in agreement.
A short while later, General Yu, carrying Guju and the Crown Prince, arrived at the night market.
Jojo's eyes turned into stars when she saw the bamboo dragonflies. She was so endearing that General Yu couldn't help but want to spoil her.
If Jugu likes it, Grandpa Yu will buy it for you.
Although Jugu loved the exquisite bamboo dragonflies, she wasn't greedy and only wanted one, as they were there for another purpose.
Suddenly a commotion broke out not far away, mixed with a woman's pitiful cries.
Well.
Lupe has served himself up on a silver platter.
Jed her grandpa in a sweet voice. Isn't that Lupe the worthy son-in-law you mentioned?
General Yu, carrying Guju, walked towards the source of the noise and saw Lupe seizing a delicate woman,
shouting arrogantly, "Come with me and I'll make sure you live a life of luxury."
The woman was in tears, crying,
"A few days ago, sir, you took my sister away just like this, and in less than 2 days, she was tortured to death by you."
The woman struggled desperately, but Liep only became more vicious.
"Either come with me willingly, or I'll disfigure you right now."
The woman trembled with fear, crying and looking around for help.
Coincidentally, one of Liope's lackeys spotted General Yu in the crowd and quickly warned his master.
"Sir, your father-in-law is over there." But Lu was unconcerned and sneered.
"That old fool is so stuffy he never goes out at night." General Yu couldn't watch any longer and roared, "Lupe!"
Lupe shuddered and turned around. Before he could even speak, several punches landed squarely on his face.
Then, General Yu grabbed Lupe by the collar and glared at him. "Tomorrow I will have you investigated by the authorities. As for the marriage, consider it off."
Juju witnessed this fierce side of General Yu and couldn't help but worry about the Crown Prince's future.
However, after this incident, General Yu finally saw Lupe's true colors, and his attitude towards the Crown Prince softened. He even, for the first time, invited the Crown Prince to stay for dinner.
A moment later, Yuan Ying and her maids came out with steaming hot dishes.
Jojo clapped her hands happily and eagerly invited Yuan Ying to sit next to her.
Yuan Ying shyly glanced at the Crown Prince and happened to meet his gentle gaze.
In an instant, both of their faces turned as red as apples. General Yu saw all of this, and seeing that they seemed to have feelings for each other, his resolve began to waver. Joju, seeing her chance, decided to add a little more fuel to the fire. She blinked and asked innocently,
"Grandpa Yu? Can the Crown Prince and sister be together now?"
Her words were met with a deafening silence. General Yu coughed twice to break the awkwardness. "This matter should not be delayed. Your Highness, I will give you an answer now." The Crown Prince's heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would jump out of his chest. He looked at General Yu with bated breath,
waiting for the answer that would decide his happiness. Finally, General Yu solemnly agreed to the Crown Prince's proposal. The Crown Prince was so excited his face turned red. He shyly glanced at Yuan Ying, and their eyes met. In that moment, both of their ears turned beet red. The Crown Prince, flustered, blurted out, "Then I, your son-in-law, will come with the betrothal gifts tomorrow." Joju's ship had finally sailed. She bounced around like a happy little rabbit and ran to Yuan's side. "Sister, you were going to be family now." Then, without waiting, she reached out her little hand and gently touched Yuan Ying's face, which she had been dreaming of. I touched it. Jojo was so happy her eyes squinted into a line. But in the next second, she deflated like a popped balloon, grumbling to herself, "Too bad the Crown Prince won't have to give me a piggyback ride now." The Crown Prince heard Gu's thoughts and couldn't help but smile. He secretly made a mental note of her little wish. As it was getting late, the Crown Prince took Guju back to his residence outside the palace. He was still basking in the joy of his successful proposal. Shoujo had been the hero of the day. "Juju, I have to thank you." Hearing this, Guju immediately closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep, but in her heart she was thinking, "No piggyback ride. No talking to you." Seeing this, the Crown Prince gently poked Guju's cute little cheek and said with a smile, "Juju, how about I give you a piggyback ride?" Joju's sleepiness vanished in an instant. She shot up from the bed like a spring, and in the blink of an eye was on the Crown Prince's back enjoying her ride. While the two were having fun, the attendant rushed in to report. "The second prince has come late at night to congratulate your highness, and says he has something important to tell you." The Crown Prince had been close to the second prince since they were children, so he immediately told the attendant to let him in. But Guju's face changed drastically, and she shouted in her mind, "The second prince is not a good person. He's hiding the fact that he's a fake prince, and deliberately getting close to the Crown Prince to usurp his position." The Crown Prince, who had been overjoyed, felt like he had been struck by lightning when he heard Guju's thoughts. He recalled the second prince's many strange behaviors. No wonder he didn't resemble any of the other princes, and had been disliked by his own mother since childhood, only being close to him. All these years he had treated him as a true brother, but he had been plotting against him all along. Guju looked at the Crown Prince with concern, debating whether to reveal the second prince's entire scheme. The Crown Prince was moved to see such a little girl racking her brain for him. He proactively told the attendant, "I'm a bit tired today. We can talk about it another time." After a pause, he added sternly, "If he comes again in the future, just find any excuse to send him away. I don't want to see him." Yo was impressed by the Crown Prince's decisiveness and cheered in her mind. "The Crown Prince is so amazing." The Crown Prince heard Guju's exaggerated praise and smiled. "Juju, it's too late today. How about I give you another piggyback ride another day?" "Okay." Guju nodded obediently. Soon she fell into a sweet sleep with the Crown Prince by her side, still thinking, "I will definitely help the Crown Prince avoid his tragic fate." Watching the sleeping Guju, the Crown Prince's heart was filled with warmth and comfort. He silently vowed to protect her at all costs. The next day, Guju slept in until the sun was high in the sky. When she woke up, she found that the Crown Prince had already gone to the Yu family to present the betrothal gifts. She wasn't angry at all. Instead, she had a bold idea. "I'm going to explore the streets." Nanny Guy, concerned for the princess's safety, refused to let her go, but Guju wouldn't give up. She blinked her big, watery eyes and pleaded with Nanny Gui. "Nanny Guy, you'll be with me, and we can have a few guards follow us secretly. It'll be fine. Right?" Looking at the adorable Guju, Nanny Gui couldn't bring herself to refuse and reluctantly agreed. And so, Juju and Nanny Gui slipped out quietly. Little did she know, the moment she stepped out of the residence, a pair of eyes was watching her closely from the shadows. As she happily navigated the bustling crowd, a paw suddenly reached out for her. Jojo was so scared, her soul nearly left her body. It was her first brother, smiling broadly. He had been secretly following her, waiting for a chance to get on her good side and make her like him. However, his plan backfired spectacularly. Guju looked at him without a hint of joy, her mind racing. Why is he holding me like a puppy? Is he still mad at me for what happened before?
The first prince's high hopes were instantly shattered. Seeing Guju's wary look, he became flustered and quickly explained, "I was just so happy to see you. I didn't mean to scare you. As an apology, I'll take you to eat the best buns in the entire capital." At the mention of food, Guju's interest was piqued, but she was still on guard. The first prince mentally kicked himself, regretting not being nicer to her at the birthday banquet. Soon, they arrived at the most famous bun shop in the capital. The first prince declared generously, "Order whatever you want, Guju."
It's on me.
Guju looked at the dazzling array of buns on the menu and was hit with a case of choice paralysis. The first prince saw this as a golden opportunity to win her over and enthusiastically recommended his favorite meat bun. Hearing this, Guju couldn't help but roast him in her mind. Are the meat buns in the palace not good enough? The first prince heard her thoughts, and cringing so hard he could have dug a hole to another dimension. He quickly changed his tune. "You've never had wild mushroom buns before. How about you try those this time?" Seeing the first prince's eager expression, Guju smiled and nodded. The first prince was overjoyed that she had agreed, and he wanted to give her a big surprise. So, he quickly went to place their order. Unfortunately, the surprise turned into a shock. 20 cages of steaming hot buns were piled up in front of them like a small mountain. Joju's eyes widened. "Big brother, are you sure you're not trying to fatten up a pig?" The passers-by all cast strange glances their way. Youth is amazing. He can eat so much in one sitting. Jojo was worried they wouldn't be able to finish all the buns, but the first prince confidently stated that this was just a normal meal for him. The passers-by were stunned, shocked that someone so young could have such a massive appetite. Jojo was so embarrassed she could have dug 10 imperial palaces with her toes. She jumped up and ran. "I'm not eating anymore. I'm going to go look around." She didn't forget to turn back and tell the first prince to finish all the buns, and not to waste any. Having escaped her clueless big brother, Guju wandered the streets alone. Suddenly, her attention was caught by a jewelry stall. Since she was out of the palace, she wanted to pick a gift for her mother. As she was carefully choosing, an arrogant voice came from behind her. "Hey shorty, my sister wants that gold inlaid jade pendant around your neck. Hand it over." Hearing this, Juju immediately clutched the pendant and turned around wearily. "Who are you? This is mine. Why should I give it to you?" This was a gift her mother had commissioned for her, with her own dowry, when they were in the cold palace. It meant the world to her, and she would never let anyone take it. The young pumpkin green, seeing that Guju wouldn't give up the pendant, immediately tried to intimidate her. "I'm Zhang Cheng, the cousin of Liu Pei, the son of the Minister of Works. If you know what's good for you, hand it over or you'll be sorry." Juju wasn't scared. She sneered. "Liu Pei has already been thrown in jail. He can't even save himself. And since you're robbing people in broad daylight, you can go join him in jail." Zheng Chong flew into a rage. "You little brat, you're asking for it." Just as he was about to lunge at Guju, a large bun flew through the air and hit him squarely in the face with a thwack. The first prince had arrived just in time. He shielded Guju and roared, "I'd like to see you try. You take one more step and you'll regret it." Guju felt an overwhelming sense of security. Big brother is a general. With him here, I'll be fine. The first prince heard Gu's thoughts, and his cheeks flushed bright red with pleasure. Zhang Chong, seeing his prize about to slip away, roared in frustration. "Who are you? Your front teeth aren't even real, and you dare to meddle in my business." Hearing this, the first prince's face darkened. "I am the first prince of the dynasty. Watch your mouth." Zheng Cheng scoffed and laughed out loud. The first prince would eat at a street stall. "Don't tell me you're going to try and convince me that the shorty behind you is the 18th princess." With that, he waved his hand and arrogantly ordered his lackeyess to snatch the gold inlaid jade pendant from Guju's neck. The first prince frowned. "You want to fight? I'm happy to oblige." To avoid accidentally hurting Guju, he quickly told her to move to a safe spot. His opponents charged forward aggressively, but in less than a second, they were all on the ground. After years of leading armies, these small-time thugs were no match for him. In the blink of an eye, he had them pinned to the ground. Jojo cheered excitedly. "First brother is so cool! So cool! So cool!" Hearing Guju's praise,
The first prince's heart swelled with pride, and his fists flew with even more force. One punch per person, he easily took care of Zhangcheng's lackeys and once again won Guju's affection. Big Brother is so amazing. He hits wherever I want him to hit. It's so satisfying. Zhangcheng, seeing that he had picked a fight with the wrong person, knew he was in trouble, but he still tried to act tough. You just wait. My dad is Zhang Qingshan, a high-ranking official in the palace. You're finished. Jojo stuck out her tongue, unafraid. Go ahead, we're not scared. Is there anyone in this world with a higher rank than our dad? At this moment, an old woman kindly advised the two to run away. Jojo was not happy. They're the ones who did something wrong. Why should we run? The old woman quickly explained. The Zhang family has been bullying people for years, doing all sorts of terrible things. If you don't leave now, you might not make it out alive. The first prince was shocked to hear this, not realizing the Zhang family was so lawless. Jojo was so angry she was trembling. Big Brother, they're so evil. We have to make them pay. The first prince promised Juju that he would not let such villains get away with it. Soon, Zhang Chong returned with his corrupt official father in tow. Dad, it was those two who bullied us. Zhang Qingshan looked arrogant. Don't worry, Dad's here to back you up. I'll make them pay. Then Zhang Qingshan swaggered up behind the first prince and put a hand on his shoulder. Kid, aren't you going to turn around and kowtow me? If you beg for mercy now, I might let you live. The first prince sneered. Is that so? He then grabbed Zhang Qingshan's hand. Zhang Qingshan, your son might not recognize me, but you're not blind, are you? The moment Zhang Qingshan saw who was in front of him, he was so scared his diapers nearly got wet. First prince. His legs went weak, and he dropped to his knees, begging for mercy and terror. But Zhang Chan, completely oblivious, was still questioning the first prince's identity. Zhang Qingshan slapped his son so hard he fell to the ground. You worthless son! Get on your knees, now! You've really gotten your father into deep trouble this time. Zhang Cheng, feeling wronged, started arguing heatedly with his father right there. The first prince frowned and immediately ordered the father and son to be taken to the government office. After dealing with the matter, he turned around. The coldness in his eyes instantly replaced with concern and gentleness. Gu, were you scared? Guju smiled sweetly and shook her head. I'm fine. Thank you, big brother. Suddenly, Guju remembered that, in the original book, the prefect was a corrupt official who would release criminals for a bribe, letting them continue to harm the common people. The first prince heard Guju's thoughts, and his eyes widened in shock, never imagining the prefect could be so lawless. So, without hesitation, he picked up Guju and decided to go to the government office to personally supervise the case. Joju secretly praised him. This big brother is so thorough. As they turned to leave for the government office, they didn't notice an old, white-haired man in a corner of the street watching them leave, with tears in his eyes. A man next to him quickly comforted him. Father, we've just returned to the capital. Now is not the time. The old man nodded slightly and sighed. You're right. We've already waited for 3 years. A little longer won't make a difference. In the blink of an eye, the first prince and Guju arrived at the government office. As soon as they entered, they stumbled upon the prefect's wicked scheme, just as Guju had thought. The prefect, in order to get rich, was planning to cover for the Zhang family. The deputy prefect, unable to stand by and watch, was arguing with him. Seeing this, Juju couldn't help but sigh. Although this deputy prefect is a rare good official, his rank is too low, and he has no power to stop him. Seeing this, the first prince was furious and roared. Prefect, your scheming is so loud, even I can hear it. The prefect shuddered with fear, quickly turned around with a fake smile, and tried to explain this. This is all a misunderstanding. The first prince didn't give him a chance. He walked up and kicked him to the ground, saying coldly, I'm a military man. I don't understand explanations. He then decisively ordered the prefect to be thrown in jail and announced that the deputy prefect would temporarily take his place. Guju was overjoyed to see the first prince's decisive action, thinking that her father would surely promote the deputy prefect after hearing about this. She was so happy she almost jumped for joy.
The deputy prefect also solemnly promised the first prince that he would handle the case impartially.
As the prefect was being dragged away, he shouted defiantly,
"You little deputy official, you just wait." Jojo's heart skipped a beat. Oh no. In the original story, the prefect held a grudge and hired an assassin that very night. She quickly reminded the deputy prefect, "When you go out in the next few days, no matter what, don't get out of your sedan chair." The deputy prefect looked confused and gave an awkward smile, nodding in perfunctory agreement. Guju knew from his expression that he hadn't taken her words to heart, but she didn't know how to explain. The first prince saw Guju's dilemma and gently patted her head, comforting her. "Juju, don't worry." Then his tone changed. "I'll have someone follow the deputy prefect for the next few days. If he dares to get out of his sedan chair, they'll break his legs." Everyone was stunned by his words. That evening, on his way home from work, the deputy prefect suddenly heard an unusually piercing baby's cry from outside. His heart tightened, and he immediately ordered his servant to stop the sedan chair. The servant advised him not to get out, but he insisted that as an official, he couldn't ignore the suffering of the people. Disregarding the servant's advice, he got out of the chair. Little did he know, danger was quietly approaching. Sure enough, as soon as he got out, someone struck him hard from behind. The deputy prefect fainted on the spot, and his servant broke out in a cold sweat. But they never expected that the attacker was actually one of the first prince's men. After a few words of instruction, the first prince's man disappeared into a small alley. The next day, the first prince couldn't wait to tell Juju what had happened. When he got to the crucial part, he deliberately left her hanging. Jojo was so anxious, she stomped her feet and threatened, "If you don't tell me, big brother, I'll tickle you." The first prince was terrified of being tickled and quickly surrendered. Don't. I'll tell you. Actually, there was no crying baby in the alley. Just a professional voice actor. Under interrogation, he confessed everything. It was all Prefect Jung's scheme. Hearing this, Guju clenched her little fists, wishing she could punch that cunning villain. The first prince smiled, doing, "Don't worry, Guju. Father has already dismissed him from his post and sentenced him." Jojo then asked, "Have the Jung and Lu families been punished?" Of course, Liope was sentenced to death. Jiang Tingshan was exiled, and their children were sent to the palace as servants. Juju felt incredibly satisfied. With the matter settled, she prepared to return to the palace. The first prince was reluctant to let her go, and insisted she stay another night. When Guju refused, he played his trump card. "I'll give you a piggyback ride." Guju's eyes immediately lit up. Big brother is taller and stronger than the crown prince. This'll be fun. But she quickly came to her senses, remembering that clearing her mother and brother's names was urgent, and she had to return to the palace to prepare. After hearing Guju's thoughts, the first prince understood the gravity of the situation and didn't delay any longer, personally escorting her back to the palace. In the blink of an eye, Guju was back at the Autumn Water residence, where the tyrant emperor happened to be. The moment the emperor saw Guju, his face lit up with joy, and he immediately scooped her up for kisses and hugs. But when he heard Guju praising her two brothers, his vat of 82-year-old vinegar tipped over again. Suddenly, Guju remembered the important matter. "I heard that your sworn sister, Princess Wen, is returning to the capital today." As soon as she said this, the faces of the emperor and concubine Li changed, and they looked troubled. Jojo realized this was a taboo topic, but she would not give up the chance to clear her 13th brother's name. At a banquet years ago, Prince Dun had died after eating poison food, and her father had ordered a strict investigation. As a result, Princess Wen, who had been bribed by the real culprit, framed the unfavored 13th prince, leading to his wrongful imprisonment and her mother's implication. Princess Wen had then fled. Now that Princess Wen was back, Guju was determined to find out the truth and clear her brother and mother's names. Even if it meant being disliked by her father, she secretly resolved to convince her father to reopen the case. After a long internal monologue from Guju, the tyrant emperor realized there was more to the story of what happened years ago. He immediately decided to release the 13th prince first, and then investigate thoroughly. Hearing this, concubine Li dropped to her knees to thank him. The emperor, heartbroken, helped her up and asked about the details before the incident. But concubine Li couldn't remember anything. This left the emperor at a loss, not knowing where to start the investigation. Judah thought to herself, "It seems the only way to get to the bottom of this is to start with Princess Wen." Back then, Princess Wen received money and a life-saving pill for her mother from the real culprit. So she's been blackmailed all these years. There must be letters between them. If we can find those letters, we might uncover the truth. The emperor heard Guju's thoughts and immediately ordered a thorough investigation of all of Princess Wen's correspondence from 2 months before the incident until now. Jojo looked at her tyrant father with wide eyes, praising him in her mind for being so smart today. The emperor felt a little strange. Why only smart today? But then he thought, I really am not as clever as Guju. Guju noticed his strange expression and asked, "Daddy, why are you looking at Juju like that?" The emperor took the opportunity to kiss Juju. Because Jugu is cute. Father can't get enough of looking at you. Jojo looked disgusted. When did Daddy get so cheesy? Concubine Li, watching the father and daughter, couldn't help but laugh. Seeing her mother happy, Juju was also happy. Seeing Concubine Li happy, the emperor was also happy. Time was of the essence, so the emperor didn't stay long. He got up to start the investigation and promised to give Juju and her mother a satisfactory answer. After the emperor left, Guju remembered she had bought a gift for her mother outside the palace. But when she felt for her pouch, it was gone. She told her mother to wait at the Autumn Water residence while she searched for it in the palace. Jojo searched the palace high and low but couldn't find her pouch anywhere. Just then, she saw the deputy head of the Imperial Hospital holding her pouch. She ran over, and the deputy head, surprised, bowed and said, "Greetings, 18th Princess." Jojo said directly, "Skip the formalities. Please give me back my pouch." The deputy head quickly apologized. "Princess, please forgive me. I opened the pouch to find the owner." He paused and then continued. "Inside is a long-lost prescription that can cure 100 poisons. Could the princess lend it to me for research?" Jojo refused outright. "No, this is Guju's treasure. It can't be shared. The head of the orphanage specifically told me that if bad people get it, they'll use it to make poison and make a fortune." The deputy head didn't insist. Guju took back her pouch and went to find her mother. Little did she know, their conversation had been overheard. On the other side, Princess Wen asked her maid, "How is the investigation into the prescription going?" "I came back this time to get medicine for my mother, and time is running out." The maid informed her that the 18th princess had a detoxifying prescription. Princess Wen was stunned. "The 18th princess? I heard she's the emperor's new favorite." A wicked smile appeared on her lips. "If I could send her brother to prison back then, dealing with her won't be hard. Let me know when the 18th princess is alone. I have my ways of getting the prescription." The tyrant emperor had given a dog named Big Yellow to concubine Li, hoping to please her. But Jojo ended up being even happier. When she saw Big Yellow, Guju's eyes sparkled. Big Yellow liked Guju too, wagging his tail enthusiastically. It turned out that Guju had wanted a dog in her past life, but could never afford one. When the emperor found out, he first regretted not getting her one sooner, but then he felt a little jealous that Guju was paying more attention to the dog than to him. But seeing his daughter so happy, he decided to put his jealousy aside for now. One day, Guju was happily playing with Big Yellow in the Imperial Garden. Princess Wen saw Guju alone and was secretly pleased. A malicious smile flickered across her face as she tiptoed over. "Princess." Jojo turned around abruptly and saw a woman with a fake smile. "I am the grand consort of the Mangdan tribe. It's a pleasure to meet you." Then she took out a wooden box. "This is the rarest cowhide candy from the Mangdan tribe. I hope the princess will accept it." She held the box out to Guju. Jojo's heart skipped a beat. From her words, she recognized her as Princess Wen, the one who had framed her mother and brother. She's up to no good. She refused without hesitation. Princess Wen's smile froze, and she cursed under her breath. Ungrateful brat. But she didn't give up and continued to persuade her. "Why don't you try it first, princess? This candy is sweet and chewy. You can't get it in the capital." Seeing Jojo unmoved,
Princess Wen flew into a rage and grabbed Guju's wrist. Jojo felt a wave of nausea and forcefully shook off her hand. I said, "I'm not eating it." Seeing this, Princess Wen guessed that Guju knew what had happened in the past and held a grudge against her. She dropped the act and reached for the pouch on Guju's waist. Jojo quickly stepped back and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Robbery! Someone help!" At the critical moment, Big Yellow rushed over and shielded Guju, barking fiercely at Princess Wen. Princess Wen was so scared she turned pale. She forgot all about her image and ran away in a panic, with Big Yellow hot on her heels. Princess Wen ran from the Imperial Garden all the way to the Imperial Study, where she happened to run into the Emperor and the Grand Empress de Jaeger. She quickly hid behind them and shouted. The Emperor worried that Big Yellow might startle the Grand Empress. Dogger ordered him to stop. Big Yellow obediently lay down on the ground. Princess Wen immediately dropped to her knees and tearfully thanked the Emperor. The Emperor asked coldly. Big Yellow never bites people randomly. What did you do to him? Princess Wen caught her breath and with a look of hatred twisted the truth. It was the 18th princess. I kindly offered her a snack, but she didn't like it and deliberately ordered this dog to bite me. The Emperor didn't believe a word, she said. After all, she had framed the 13th prince with just her words back then. And now, she was trying to frame Guju. In that case, it was time to settle both the new and old scores at once. His sharp gaze bore into Princess Wen as he asked coldly, "What proof do you have?" Princess Wen looked disheveled, but still insisted. His Majesty and the Grand Empress de Jaeger saw it with their own eyes. Who else could it be? The Emperor held Guju protectively in his arms and asked gently, "Why did Big Yellow chase after Princess Wen?" Before Guju could speak, Princess Wen cut her off sharply. "Isn't it because she's a princess and can do whatever she wants?" The Emperor's eyes turned cold, and he roared, "Silence! I didn't ask you." Jojo's little face turned red with grievance, and she explained with a tearful voice, "She tried to steal my pouch, so Big Yellow protected me and bit her." Hearing this, Princess Wen jumped to her feet. "I am a princess of a nation, the grand consort of Mangdan. Why would I want a little girl's pouch? Are you lying?" Jojo was at a loss for words. She thought to herself, "The book says that Princess Wen's mother is seriously ill, and my pouch happens to contain the life-saving prescription." The news must have spread after the deputy head of the Imperial Hospital found it, but this is all from the book and without solid proof. If I say it out loud, people will think I'm a monster, right? The Emperor heard Juju's thoughts and suddenly slammed his hand on the table. "You wouldn't want it. Guju's pouch contains the prescription that can save your mother. Isn't that why you came back?" Princess Wen was struck by lightning, her face instantly turning pale. She couldn't believe that her carefully planned scheme had been seen through so easily. Jojo looked at her tyrant father with adoration. Daddy is so amazing, he even figured out Princess Wen's motive. But then she wondered, how did Daddy know about the prescription? Could he have heard my thoughts? The Emperor coughed twice. The deputy head of the Imperial Hospital already told me. Did you really think you could get away with it? Only then did Guju understand. And she couldn't help but complain in her mind. The deputy head is such a big mouth. At that moment, the deputy head, who was mixing medicine, suddenly sneezed twice and muttered, "Who's thinking of me?" Princess Wen was still stubbornly resisting. "They're framing me. This is a huge setup." Jojo rolled her eyes in frustration. Fortunately, the Emperor was prepared. He looked at her coldly and said sternly, "Fuan, present the evidence. These are the letters between you and the real culprit after you were married off." The Emperor threw the letters at Princess Wen's face. "They clearly record the evidence of you framing the 13th prince." When Princess Wen saw the letters, her face changed drastically, and she frantically tried to deny it. "They're fake." The Emperor sneered. "Fake? The ones you burned are the fake ones." With ironclad evidence, Princess Wen could no longer deny it. The Emperor immediately ordered her title of princess to be revoked and for her to be sent back to Mingdan, never to return without a summons. With the villain brought to justice, Guju breathed a sigh of relief.
The emperor announced that the 13th prince was innocent and awarded him 10,000 taels of gold and jade.
Concubine Li was overjoyed and knelt to thank him. The emperor quickly helped her up, saying guilty, "It was my negligence that made you suffer." Jojo was ecstatic. "Now I can finally meet my 13th brother." She was filled with anticipation for their reunion. Concubine Li and Juju entered the sunless dungeon, and a terrifying, bone-chilling aura immediately hit them. Guju regretted not begging her tyrant father to release her brother before investigating the case. Her brother had been locked in this god-forsaken place for 5 whole years, and Guju couldn't help but worry about his mental state. Concubine Li just prayed her son was safe. In the depths of the dungeon, a figure as thin as a skeleton was curled up in a corner. This was the 13th prince. His mind was still on his mother, wondering how she was doing. Suddenly, the cell door clanged open. The moment Concubine Li saw the 13th prince, tears streamed down her face like a broken dam. The 13th prince was completely bewildered, having no idea why his mother had suddenly appeared and was crying so heartbrokenly. Before he could react, 2 guards came over and tried to help him up. This sent the 13th prince into a panic. His father going to have my head? The more he thought about it, the more terrified he became. He instinctively broke free, shouting, "No! I don't want to die!" In his panic, the 13th prince caught sight of Guju standing next to Concubine Li. An idea struck him. While no one was looking, he lunged forward, grabbed Guju, and held her hostage, yelling, "Let me out, or else don't blame me for what happens next." This move left Guju completely baffled. "You're my actual brother. How can you use me as a hostage?" Miraculously, the 13th prince heard her inner thoughts and jerked his hand away from her neck. "I'm sorry. This is all my fault." His bizarre behavior convinced Guju that he had been locked up for too long and had lost his mind. Concubine Li was also worried sick, afraid the emperor would be disgusted if he saw her son in this state and lock him up again. Left with no choice, Concubine Li ordered the guards to tie up the 13th prince and take him back to the Autumn Water residence, where she could secretly summon an imperial physician. Meanwhile, the tyrant emperor was on his way to the Autumn Water residence for a family reunion. Just as he set out, he saw a palace maid and a physician hurrying by. Upon asking, he learned they had been summoned by Concubine Li. The emperor grew anxious and quickened his pace. When he arrived, he boomed, "Where are Concubine Li and Guju? Who's sick?" He turned his head and saw Concubine Li and Guju carrying a figure wrapped up like a mummy. The tyrant emperor was dumbstruck. "Concubine Li, what is going on here?" Concubine Li stammered nervously, afraid that one wrong word would get her son locked up again. Seeing her parents like this, Juju felt awful. She racked her brain for a way to clear up the misunderstanding and keep her father from being repulsed by her 13th brother. But her brother's condition was clearly a huge problem, and the tense atmosphere didn't help. It was the most chaotic situation she'd ever faced. How was she going to fix this? Between a crazed brother, a worried mother, and a hot-headed father, there wasn't a single normal person in the room. Jojo had to step up and urge her tyrant dad to take a look at her brother first. Judging by how anxious he was definitely worried. But the tyrant emperor just shot Concubine Li a dark look. "I rushed over because I thought you were sick. If the 13th prince was ill, couldn't you have just said so?" Concubine Li's face flushed, and she couldn't find the words. Jojo stepped in to smooth things over. "Mother didn't say anything because she was afraid of scaring you, Daddy." The emperor didn't understand. Jojo quickly explained that her mother was afraid her brother would lash out at him in his agitated state. Inwardly, she was grumbling. "If Daddy gets mad, he'll just throw brother back in jail." Daddy is so mean, storming in here and questioning Mommy. Fortunately, the emperor took the hint and realized he had been too harsh. Concubine Li saw his expression soften and immediately dropped to her knees, tearfully, begging him not to be disgusted with the 13th prince or lock him up again. The emperor's heart ached. He quickly helped her up. "I've already released him. I won't lock him up again." He gently took her hand and promised, "I will treat you all well from now on." Just then, the 13th prince looked shocked. "Released? So, father isn't going to execute me?"
I thought you and my sister were here to see me one last time. Jojo was dumbfounded. So, her brother's breakdown was because he thought he was about to be executed. With the truth out, the emperor was relieved. He wanted to have a private father-son talk with the 13th prince. So, he told concubine Li and Guju to take a walk in the imperial garden. Jojo was happy the misunderstanding was cleared up. But then she noticed her mother secretly wiping away tears. Her mother explained they were tears of joy. Her brother was finally cleared. Jojo was favored, and her family could finally rest easy. Speaking of family, Jojo suddenly got curious. I haven't met them yet. Concubine Li asked if she wanted to go, and Juju's eyes lit up. Yes, I want to go with you, mother. But concubine Li looked troubled, explaining that palace rules forbade concubines from leaving at will. Jojo pouted. If you're not going, then I'm not going. If we go as a family. As luck would have it, the emperor overheard their conversation. He decided he would accompany them to visit her family the next day. Concubine Li was about to refuse, but the emperor shut her down with a simple, "It's a royal decree." And just like that, it was happily decided. The emperor then turned to the 13th prince. I've said my piece. Now it's your turn. Juju and concubine Li looked on confused as the 13th prince cautiously walked over to Juju. Joju, I was wrong earlier. I'm sorry. He then handed her a small, handmade kitten doll. Jojo happily accepted it and forgave her brother. Suddenly, the emperor leaned over to concubine Li and whispered conspiratorially, "Should we have Guju changed back into a boy's clothes tomorrow?" Concubine Li's heart skipped a beat. Oh no. She'd almost forgotten the emperor still thought Gu was a boy. The 13th prince was just as baffled. What's this bombshell? Wait, my little sister is actually my little brother? Guju tried her best to explain that she was a girl, but the tyrant emperor wouldn't listen. He just thought that wearing dresses for so long had confused her. So, with a heavy heart, the emperor decreed that from this day forward, Guju would resume her life as a boy. Hearing this, Guju was stunned. How could Daddy do this to me? The 13th prince was just as confused. Is my adorable little sister really going to become a stinky little brother? Concubine Li sighed to herself, deciding to tell the emperor the truth when the time was right. The next morning, Guju was forced to change into boy's clothes. She complained furiously in her mind. My tyrant dad is so mean, he even took away all my pretty dresses overnight. Seeing Guju's unhappiness, the emperor walked over, picked her up, and cooed. Juju looks cute in boys' clothes too. Daddy loves you no matter what you wear. But Juju just looked disgusted and shook her head like a rattle. No, no, no. I only like pretty dresses. This put the emperor in a tough spot. How was Guju supposed to make her way in the world like this? He racked his brain, trying to correct her thinking. To instill a bit of masculinity in her, he made Guju learn to get into the carriage by herself. Although Guju was rolling her eyes on the inside, she gritted her teeth and used all her strength to climb aboard. Half an hour later, the carriage arrived at concubine Li's family home. The emperor got out first. When concubine Li's parents saw him, they quickly bowed and greeted him. Concubine Li sat in the carriage, her heart in her throat. She missed her family, but also felt guilty and couldn't bring herself to get out. Jojo saw right through her mother. Last night, Mom kept talking about how her family suffered because of her, and she's worried they resent her. It's a classic case of getting nervous the closer she got to home. The emperor heard Guju's thoughts and instantly understood. He turned to concubine Li's parents and saw nothing but concern and longing for their daughter in their eyes. He breathed a sigh of relief and called into the carriage. Liao, your parents are waiting eagerly to see you. Come out. Concubine Li was still hesitant. Do they still want to see me? The emperor couldn't resist joking. Of course. If I'm lying, may I never win your heart. Concubine Li's anxieties finally settled. The emperor helped her out of the carriage. As soon as she said, "Father, Mother," her parents' eyes turned red, and tears streamed down their faces. After exchanging pleasantries, they went inside. Concubine Li noticed how quiet the house was and asked, "Where are my brother and sister-in-law?" Her father sighed. During the Quang Rebellion 6 years ago, Your sister-in-law was poisoned, and she's been getting sicker ever since. Your brother is by her bedside, which is why he couldn't come to greet you. Guju remembered the Kwang rebellion. Rebels had stormed the capital, specifically poisoning the female relatives of officials. Princess Wen's mother was a victim, and now it seemed her aunt was too. Her grandparents heard Guju's thoughts and exchanged a surprised look. Could this child really be the lucky star everyone says she is? Guju, however, had already made up her mind. She was going to cure her aunt. Jojo announced she had a way to cure her aunt, and concubine Lee quickly asked if she was serious. Jojo immediately told them about her all-curing prescription. Concubine Lee was about to share the good news with her parents, but they were skeptical. After all, who would believe a 5-year-old had such an ability? Jojo sighed internally. This prescription was taught to me by the director of the orphanage in my past life. Her grandparents heard her thoughts and exchanged a knowing glance. After some hesitation, her grandfather decided to let Guju try. Jojo was thrilled and was about to drag concubine Lee off to get the herbs, but concubine Lee hesitated, glancing at the emperor, worried about being a poor hostess. The emperor, for once, was understanding. He waved his hand and said he and the 13th prince would look around, telling them to go save her aunt first. A short while later, Guju and concubine Lee hurried back with a bowl of medicinal soup. Her uncle Li Guang rushed forward. Sister, I heard you have medicine that can cure... Where? Is it true? Concubine Lee nodded firmly. Absolutely. This medicine can cure any poison. Sister-in-law will definitely get better after taking it. He rushed to the bedside, gently helped his wife up, and urged her to drink it. His wife didn't hesitate and drank the soup in one go. In an instant, her deathly pale face gained a rosy hue. She exclaimed in surprise, "This medicine is amazing. I feel so much better already." Li Guang's eyes reened as he looked at concubine Lee gratefully. Sister, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. Concubine Lee smiled and shook her head. We're family. Besides, you should thank Juju. She's the one who found the prescription. Jojo waved her hands and grinned. No need to thank me. I'm happy when Auntie is better and everyone is happy. Li Guang immediately promised to repay this life-saving debt. Realizing his wife needed to rest, concubine Lee and Guju took their leave. Jojo winked playfully at her uncle as she left. Seeing the matter resolved, her grandparents were relieved. Her grandmother held concubine Lee's hand, tears of joy streaming down her face. Concubine Lee comforted her. Don't cry on such a happy day. It's all thanks to our little lucky star, Guju. Speaking of Guju, her grandfather remembered she was a princess. Why was she dressed like a boy? Concubine Lee sighed and revealed the truth. Guju is a girl. His Majesty always wanted a daughter. But I was in the cold palace back then, and I was afraid she'd be harmed. So I hid her gender. Now that our family's influence is growing, I was planning to find the right time to make it public. Her grandfather nodded in agreement. You did the right thing. It's best to continue treating her as a boy until then. As they were talking, they didn't notice the 13th prince in a nearby corner. His face flushed with excitement, whispering, Juju is a girl. I have a little sister. Before the words were even out of his mouth, a stern voice came from behind him. What did you just say? Guju is a girl. And he immediately started questioning him. But I just really want a little sister, so I was just fantasizing. The emperor was skeptical. Is that so? Can fantasizing make you this happy? It's true. Truer than a pearl, the 13th prince said, then made a quick getaway. The emperor was left standing there, completely bewildered. He secretly watched Guju and her mother from a corner, determined to find a chance to verify the truth. For the next few days, besides his official duties, the emperor spent all his time stalking Guju. He knew concubine Lee must have had her reasons for hiding the truth, and didn't want to upset her by asking directly. But concubine Lee and Guju were inseparable, and he couldn't find an opportunity. The emperor looked at the beautiful concubine Lee, and his heart ached. How much has she endured to keep so many secrets? Just then, concubine Lee sensed his gaze and turned around. Your Majesty, why are you staring at me? The emperor's sweet talk came naturally.
I just think you're beautiful.
Juju was happy to see her parents getting along so well. After all, only when her mother was happy could she hope to live as a girl again. Just as she was thinking this, the 13th prince accidentally bumped into her. Jojo fell to the ground with a yelp of pain. The emperor and concubine Li turned around nervously and saw Guju sitting on the grass with the 13th prince, apologizing profusely. Jojo was very forgiving and immediately told her brother, "It's not your fault. I didn't get out of the way." Concubine Li rushed to help her up, asking if she was hurt. Guju smiled and said she was fine, just that her clothes were dirty. Hearing this, the emperor had an idea. He walked over and scooped Juju up. Perfect. Juju can take a bath with Daddy. Anubine Li immediately panicked and tried to convince the emperor to let the nannies handle it. Jojo quickly agreed. Yes, let the nannies take me. The more they resisted, the more suspicious the emperor became. Since a direct approach wasn't working, he decided to try a different tactic and gave up on the idea of bathing with Guju. Concubine Li and Guju secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Half an hour later, a nanny brought the clean Guju back to her bedroom and turned to leave. But before she could take a few steps, the emperor's stern voice stopped her. "Halt!" The nanny quickly knelt. The emperor got straight to the point. "Did you see clearly? Is Guju a boy or a girl?" Just as the emperor confirmed with the nanny that Guju was indeed a little princess, a silly grin still on his face, he sensed a shadow flicker behind him. He spun around and snapped, "Who's there?" "Father, forgive me." The first prince dropped to his knees, his forehead beaded with sweat. "I was just so worried about Guju that I climbed the wall to see her." The emperor frowned, scolding him for his recklessness. But then he realized his conversation had probably been overheard. Seeing his father's dark expression, the first prince quickly cupped his hands and said, "Congratulations, father, on gaining such a precious pearl." The flattery worked perfectly, and the emperor's mood lightened. The real hero, of course, was Concubine Li, but the first prince's words made the emperor's heart sink. Concubine Li knew all along. Why did she hide it? He wanted to go and ask her immediately. The first prince also wanted to use the opportunity to see Guju, but the emperor heartlessly kicked him out of the Li residence. The first prince had no choice but to leave. A moment later, the emperor arrived at Guju and concubine Li's quarters. Just as he reached the door, he heard a conversation from inside that made him pause. Little Guju's sweet voice said, "The nanny who bathed me was from the palace." Concubine Li was terrified. The harem is a dangerous place. If everyone finds out you're a princess, you'll be in danger. Jojo smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, mother. I sent the nanny away when I was changing. She didn't see anything." Hearing this, a huge weight was lifted from concubine Li's shoulders. The emperor, now knowing the truth, was filled with guilt, but also gratitude. Concubine Li's secrecy had saved Guju's life, so he decided to play along and pretend he didn't know. The emperor composed himself and called out, "Lao, I'm back." The door opened and concubine Li, looking a little pale, tried to act calm. "When did you arrive, Your Majesty?" "Just now. I'd like to sleep with you and our son tonight." Hearing this, concubine Li finally relaxed and let him in. Jojo heard the noise and peeked out from behind the curtain. "I'm here." The emperor went over and hugged his adorable Guju, unable to resist giving her a big smooch on her chubby little cheek. But Juju looked disgusted. "Is my deadbeat dad drunk or something?" But the emperor was completely serious. "I have something to say. Since Juju likes them so much, you can go back to wearing dresses from now on." Joju's eyes lit up. "You can't take it back, Daddy." As night fell, the three of them slept in the same bed. Jodo was growing to love these days of being cherished by her parents and hoped every day could be this happy. But later that night, she regretted it. My tyrant dad's happy dream laughter is way too loud. Before the sun was even fully up, Guju was woken by shouting. Huan rushed in to report, "Your Majesty, this is bad." The emperor, not wanting to disturb the sleeping Guju, signaled for Fuan to speak outside. But Guju's curiosity got the better of her, and she quietly followed them, hiding nearby to listen in. Fuan explained that a large number of refugees had entered the city,
and they urgently needed more manpower to ensure the safety of the citizens.
The emperor, worried that a forceful response would be seen as tyranny, hesitated to deploy troops and considered temporarily housing the refugees within the city.
Hearing this, Gujo knew this was a terrible idea. She rushed out and shouted, "No!" Only after the word was out did she remember she was eavesdropping. To her surprise, her tyrant dad didn't scold her, but praised her for being so concerned about the people at such a young age. He immediately picked up his adorable Guju and asked her gently why she didn't want the refugees in the city. Jojo was at a loss for words.
These refugees are from the southern kingdom and they're all infected with the plague. She racked her brain but couldn't figure out how to explain. Little did she know, her tyrant dad had already heard her inner thoughts and was very pleased.
Good thing I have my little lucky star Guju. The emperor decided to settle the refugees in a shelter outside the city first. Juju then added a small suggestion. When you're settling the refugees, have the guards wear face coverings.
The emperor nodded, his eyes filled with admiration.
You're right. That's my Guju. So considerate of her people. He then immediately ordered her instructions to be carried out. Soon, the emperor's decree reached the city gates, and the guards began to settle the refugees in an orderly manner. Just then, Duke Duan and his daughter's carriage happened to be stopped at the gate, and they overheard the decree. An idea sparked in Funai's mind. If she could use this opportunity to help the emperor, she might be able to win back his favor. Duke Duan thought it was a brilliant idea. Meanwhile, Guju reluctantly got into the carriage to return to the palace. The emperor noticed her reluctance and gently promised to bring her back for a visit when he had the chance.
As they were talking, a guard suddenly reported that Duke Duan was requesting an audience.
The emperor, annoyed, lifted the carriage curtain and saw the duke kneeling on the ground with a group of raggedly dressed people. The emperor got out of the carriage and asked, "Duke Duan, what is it you want?" The duke had a triumphant smile on his face as he said, "Your subject has already found a place for these refugees to live and has brought them here to see."
After hearing the duke's words, the emperor froze for a split second, then completely exploded.
Do you have any idea that these refugees are infected with the plague?
Jojo looked at the chaotic scene before her mind racing desperately to find a way to resolve this crisis.
The tyrant emperor was furious. He immediately issued a decree to quarantine the refugees outside the city and dispatched the best physicians from the imperial hospital. He then personally escorted Guju and her mother back to the palace, not wanting them to be exposed to even a hint of the plague. But Guju said she had somewhere else to be.
Kanyuban Lee was frantic, repeatedly urging her to return to the safety of the palace first. Jujo opened her mouth but said nothing. She knew who held the key to solving the plague, but she didn't know how to explain it to her tyrant dad.
The emperor heard his daughter's thoughts and gently stroked her hair.
The epidemic is just starting. I'll take Guju for a walk first. Hearing this, Guju cheered up, saying she wanted to go to Green Willow Alley to try the sweetest candied hawthorns. But her eyes held a mischievous glint. Only she knew that a brilliant young doctor, who could create a cure, was living there in seclusion.
The emperor immediately ordered the royal carriage to be prepared.
Duke Duan, sensing disaster, tried to deflect the blame. Your Majesty, the 18th princess is disregarding human life, thinking about candied hawthorns at a time like this. Juju felt incredibly wronged. Fortunately, the emperor trusted her unconditionally and ordered the guards to send the duke and his family to join the refugees outside the city. Jojo then asked her dad, "Why didn't you believe what Duke Duan said?" The emperor's eyes were filled with adoration. "My Guju is right, no matter what you do." With her father's trust, Guju was full of energy. She tugged on his sleeve, urging him to hurry, determined to reward his complete faith in her with a surprise. Meanwhile, in a house deep in Green Willow Alley, the legendary doctor was treating an old woman. The grandmother was grateful but sighed. "You have such a kind heart and healing hands. It's a pity you're stuck with a husband like that." Before she could finish, a menacing figure stormed in. "You unfaithful wench." The man's eyes were filled with malice as he raised his hand to strike. The old woman quickly shielded the doctor, which only made the man more violent. The doctor urged the grandmother to leave, and seeing the situation was dire, the old woman turned to get help. The man started beating his wife mercilessly. "You've been cheating on me behind my back." His wife's eyes reamed with frustration as she retorted, "I was treating patients!" But the crazed man wouldn't listen, and was about to bring a wooden stick down on her. A small voice cut through the tense air. A doll-like little girl stood with her hands on her hips, her eyes wide. Only weaklings hit women. "I won't let you touch her again." Jojo stood protectively in front of Sister Qingqi. Qingqi frantically urged Juju to leave, but Juju just said fiercely, "Don't be afraid, sister. I'm here to save you." The abuser was shameless enough to even hit a child. Just as his hand was about to fall, the tyrant emperor appeared, grabbing his wrist and throwing him 20 feet away. "Piece of trash like you dares to touch my daughter?" Hearing this, the abuser scoffed. "And you're the emperor? You're just a pretty boy having an affair with my wife." The emperor was furious at being wrongly accused and quickly explained, "I have always been a man of integrity. Do not speak such nonsense." He was immediately roasted by Guju in her mind. "Daddy, is that really the most important thing right now?" The emperor heard her and quickly ordered the abuser to be dragged away and dealt with. The man started panicking and was still spewing insults as he was taken away. The emperor, not wanting Guju to hear such filth, quickly covered her ears. Jojo looked confused. "Daddy, why are you covering my ears?" The emperor coaxed her. "Shh, you're too young to hear that." Just then, Qingqi gratefully dropped to her knees to thank them, saying she would do anything to repay their kindness. Joju took the opportunity to ask her to come out of seclusion to help cure the sick. Qingqi agreed without hesitation, as it had always been her ambition. But she had one question. "How did you know I could heal people? And how did you know to come and save me?" 15 minutes earlier, Guju and the emperor were wandering through Green Willow Alley like headless chickens, looking for the young doctor. Just as they were about to give up, an old woman spotted them. Seeing Guju's fine clothes, she was sure she was someone important, and bravely approached them. "Your Excellency," the emperor immediately stood protectively in front of Guju. "Who are you? What do you want?" The old woman quickly explained that Qingqi was being beaten by her husband and begged them to save her. The emperor was focused on finding the doctor and was about to refuse, but then he heard Guju's sweet voice say, "Okay." Joe was ecstatic on the inside. Chini is the young doctor's name. The emperor heard Guju's thoughts and told the old woman to lead the way. Jojo explained that it was thanks to the old woman that they were able to save her. Qingqi smiled knowingly and thanked her again, but Jujo sighed deeply. "It's not like that. You're alive because of yourself." She reached out her chubby little hand and held Qingqi's, "because you always insisted on doing good. The old woman remembered your kindness and took the risk of offending a noble to ask for our help. So you were saved, because you deserve to be." Qingqi was moved to tears, not expecting such wisdom from a child so young. The emperor was filled with pride. "That's my daughter. Cute and kind-hearted." Guju looked at her tyrant dad's goofy expression and grumbled to herself again. "Daddy needs to focus on what's important." The emperor immediately turned serious. "Doctor, the plague is about to spread through the city and the situation is critical. I'll ask you one more time. Are you willing to come out and develop a cure?" Qingqi readily agreed to help, but she had one more thing she needed the emperor's help with. The tyrant emperor promised to see that justice was done for Qingqi. Qingqi's gaze suddenly fell to a corner. "That is my son, Yun." A small, thin boy covered in bruises cautiously approached and knelt, begging the emperor to give him and his mother a place to stay. The emperor looked at the boy, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. How can a living person be so silent and still? Jojo also noticed something was off, and immediately knew this boy was perfect material for a secret guard. She tugged on her tyrant dad's sleeve and sweetly asked him to grant Sister Qingqi's request. Without a second thought, the emperor issued a decree. If Qingqi could cure the plague, she would be appointed as an imperial physician and given her own residence. As for Yun, he could enter the palace for secret guard training. Hearing this, Qingqi's eyes filled with tears as she kowtowed in gratitude. Yun was grateful to Guju
and vowed to train hard to protect her in the future. With the decree issued, the emperor ordered Qingqi to leave with him immediately. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, several months had passed, and winter had arrived. Jojo snuggled by the warm stove and couldn't help but think, Sister Qingqi is amazing. She cured the plague in just 1 month. Yoon is also progressing quickly and has become an apprentice guard. And Mom and Dad's relationship is getting better and better. Life was good. But it seemed she had forgotten something important. Someone important. Meanwhile, the forgotten Jang had nearly turned into a stone statue from waiting. His young attendant couldn't stand it anymore and said, Your Highness, stop waiting! That little princess was probably just making empty promises. Daijang was convinced Jojo wouldn't lie to him. The young attendant stomped his foot in frustration. But we barely get any charcoal for the winter. So much for being treated well. Before he could finish, Dijang cut him off sharply. Enough! It's probably just the Department of Household Affairs looking down on us. Just then, a mocking laugh came from nearby. Well, at least you know your place. Zhong Chang and his sister Zhang Shuer appeared with a bag of charcoal. I'll be honest with you. I'm the one who's been shorting you on your charcoal. What are you going to do about it? Dajang's face was cold as he retorted. You're just the children of a disgraced official now, palace slaves. How are you any different from me? Jangu's eyes were filled with scorn. You're delusional, waiting for the princess like a fool every day. She's long forgotten you. Dajang was furious and yelled, You two dogs! How dare you speak of the princess like that? You're looking for death. Zhang Chong flew into a rage and was about to roll up his sleeves, but his sister stopped him. Zhang Shuer giggled. Brother, let's take all the charcoal and let him suffer. Zhang Chong grinned menacingly. Good idea. Let's see you freeze to death this winter. The young attendant rushed forward to stop them, but was pushed to the ground by Zhang Qi. I can't hit your master, but I can hit you. Just as his hand was about to fall, a small pink figure flashed by. Stop! Jojo appeared furious, her little hands clutching a snowball, her eyes wide with anger. You touch them one more time, and you'll see what happens. Dijang was moved, but also found it hard to believe. As for the Zhang siblings, their legs had already turned to jelly. Seeing that things were not going their way, Jungir played the victim, blaming everything on Zhang. Zhang wanted to argue, but held his tongue. After all, as a tribute prince from an enemy nation, he couldn't expect the little princess to believe him. Jojo may be little, but she's not stupid. She could see who was causing trouble. She threw the snowball in her hand right at Zhang Shuer. Liar. I believe my brother Dijang is not that kind of person. Zhang Shuer immediately panicked and shouted, Princess, I'm really not lying, to give Dijang a chance to prove his innocence. Jojo let Zhang Shuer try to defend herself so she could expose her lies. Zhang Shuer took a deep breath and said, They were complaining that you didn't keep your promise and abandoned them in the tribute prince's residence. Hearing this, Juju felt a pang of guilt. She had indeed neglected Dijang recently. But so what if he complained? She walked up to Dijang and gently took his hand. I'm sorry. I've been neglectful. From now on, I'll visit you more often, so you won't have a chance to miss me. Dajang's face flushed bright red. Oh my god, the little princess is holding my hand. This feels like a confession. Gio then immediately ordered the Zhang siblings to be punished by cleaning the toilets. They begged and pleaded for mercy, but Guju's mind was made up. After all, they couldn't even get the person they were apologizing to, right? So how could they be truly repentant? Guards dragged them away. Dijang couldn't believe that the little princess not only remembered him, but also set aside her pride for his sake. He was incredibly moved. In all his life, this was the first time someone had apologized for letting him down, and the first time someone had taken a promise to him so seriously. Jojo was worried that DJ Zhang would be bullied again in the future, and decided to pick 2 people from her own palace to protect him. Zhang was flattered and quickly refused, but Guju couldn't bear the thought of such a good person being tortured into becoming a villain. So, she insisted on helping and protecting him. Guju pretended to be angry and threatened. If you don't accept them, Brother Zhang, then I won't visit you anymore. It worked like a charm. Dijang obediently nodded.
Seeing this, Juju's face broke into a bright smile. Suddenly, her expression turned serious. There's a plague in the city recently. Did the Imperial Hospital send you any preventative medicine?
Jijang looked clueless, having never heard of it.
Jojo's face darkened. It was just like in the book. The doctors were planning to let him get sick so they could extort a huge sum of money from him.
Cho wouldn't let them get away with it.
Since they wanted to profit from his misfortune, she would give them a taste of their own medicine on Dijang's behalf.
Jojo pulled Dijang towards the Imperial Hospital.
Dijang thought she was sick, but Jojo assured him she was healthy, and then said mysteriously, "You'll see in a minute." As soon as they stepped into the hospital, Jojo aggressively asked for the doctor responsible for delivering medicine to the tribute prince's residence. Dr. Wei cautiously came forward to greet her. Jojo looked at the annoying Dr. Wei with disgust, already plotting how to teach him a lesson. I'm asking you, did you or did you not deliver the preventative medicine to the tribute prince's residence? Guju was hoping he would deny it so she could expose his lie on the spot, and then use the charge of deceiving the emperor to extort a hefty sum from him. But Dr. Wei didn't play by the rules. He proudly admitted that he hadn't delivered the medicine, and even gave a long, self-righteous speech, insulting Dang right to his face. Although Dijang claimed he was used to such words, Juju couldn't just stand by and watch Dr. Wei act so maliciously. She pointed a small finger and shouted, "So, you admit that you have never completed your duties related to the tribute prince's residence?" That's right, never. Dr. Weiss' answer was exactly what Jujo wanted. Without hesitation, she ordered, "Guards! Dr. Wei has neglected his duties and defied a royal decree. Dismiss him from his post, confiscate his salary, and transfer it to the tribute prince's residence as compensation." Dr. Wei panicked and begged for mercy. "Princess, please, have mercy." Jojo frowned and scolded. "You admitted it yourself, and you still have the nerve to beg for mercy? Daddy clearly ordered the tribute prince to be treated well, yet you took it upon yourself to interpret his intentions. Do you know that as an act of deceiving the emperor, or would you prefer Daddy to handle this?" Hearing the emperor's name, Dr. Wei was too scared to say another word. Jojo's move served as a warning to everyone, and from then on, no one dared to neglect Dang. She also promised that if he was ever wronged again, she would stand up for him. Dijang was so moved he was on the verge of tears. With the matter settled, Guju took Jang's hand and happily left. Jang looked at Guju's small yet powerful back, his guilt growing stronger. He felt that he was always accepting her kindness, but could never help her in return. After escorting Dijang back to the tribute prince's residence, Guju hummed a little tune and happily returned to the Autumn Water residence. "Mother!" Suddenly, she turned to the nanny beside her and asked with a trembling voice, "Nanny, did you hear that?" The nanny nodded, her face also filled with fear. Jojo was so scared her diapers nearly got wet. "Is the Autumn Water residence really haunted?" Jojo diving under the covers like a scared little rabbit. Nanny quickly comforted her. "Princess, there are no ghosts in broad daylight. It's probably just a palace maid crying somewhere." Hearing this, Juju cautiously peeked out and declared fiercely, "No one is allowed to be unhappy in the Autumn Water residence." With that, she trotted off on her little legs. Jojo followed the sound of crying and searched the residence high and low, finally finding a woman secretly wiping away tears in a corner, mumbling, "What will happen to my son?" Jojo approached her. "Are you the one who is crying? Which palace are you from? You're a concubine. I haven't seen you before." The woman was startled, and seeing the doll-like little face, guessed her identity and quickly curtsied. "Greetings, princess. I am noble Lady Anne. Because of a disfigurement, I rarely leave my quarters, so it's normal that you haven't seen me." Jojo knew this story. Noble Lady Anne was the third prince's mother. She had been a great beauty, but she was poisoned during her pregnancy, which left both her and her unborn son with marks on their faces, causing her to fall out of favor. Later, after the third prince's engagement was broken off, he fell gravely ill, and noble Lady Anne had to threaten suicide to save his life. But when the third prince woke up, he only found her body. He eventually turned evil, betrayed the kingdom, and contributed to the fall of the Western Chu. Since noble Lady Anne was still alive, there was still a chance to change things. Jojo tentatively asked,
Noble Lady Anne, are you crying because third brother is sick? Noble Lady Anne looked surprised. How did you know, Princess? Jojo thought quickly. I heard it from the Imperial Hospital. Noble Lady inside and was about to leave. But Guju couldn't let the tragedy happen again and grabbed her arm. Noble Lady Anne, wait. I have a way to save third brother. Noble Lady Anne, aware of her own situation, advised Guju not to get involved. But Guju was moved by her kindness and was determined to help. She pulled Noble Lady Anne along and ran to the Imperial Hospital. When they arrived, Noble Lady Anne was still trying to talk Guju out of it. But Guju marched in with a swagger and shouted, "Where are the doctors?" Her shout nearly sent the doctors to an early grave. One doctor came forward, trembling. Princess, what can we do for you this time? Jojo waved her hand grandly. Noble Lady Anne and the third prince are under my protection now. The doctor immediately understood. This subject will send someone to treat the third prince at once. Noble Lady Anne was completely bewildered. She had begged for 3 whole days to no avail, and Guju had solved it with a single sentence. Nanny Gui explained, Princess Guju is deeply favored by His Majesty, so of course the doctors listened to her. Noble Lady Anne was overcome with gratitude. I will never be able to repay the princess's kindness. Juju just hoped that Noble Lady Anne would stay alive, and her third brother wouldn't turn evil. But since she couldn't reveal the future, she decided to win over her third brother herself. Jo accompanied Noble Lady and back to her palace. Seeing the gaunt-faced third brother and the cold, simple living quarters, Juju instantly understood why he had turned to the dark side. She secretly vowed to rewrite his tragic fate. She quickly ordered the doctor to treat him. After a thorough examination, the doctor reported that the third prince's condition was not serious, and that he would wake up within 3 days after taking some medicine. Hearing this, Noble Lady Anne burst into tears of joy and hugged Guju, thanking her repeatedly. Jojo wiped away her tears and said sweetly, Don't cry, Noble Lady Anne. You're a beautiful lady, and I don't like to see beautiful ladies cry. Noble Lady, and smiled shyly. I wouldn't dare call myself beautiful. Joju's words were as sweet as honey. Beauty is in the bones, not the skin. In my eyes, Noble Lady Anne is as beautiful as a fairy. Her words were like a warm ray of sunshine in winter, instantly warming Noble Lady Anne's heart. Seeing it was getting late and worrying her own mother, Guju decided to return to the Autumn Water residence. Before leaving, she made sure to remind the doctor that if he didn't do his job, she would know. 3 days later, Guju happily went to visit her third brother. As soon as she entered, she was met with a question. Who are you? The third prince stared at her wearily. What are you up to? Jojo quickly waved her hands and said, I just want to save you. In her heart, she thought, third brother must still be on high alert after being so sick. The third prince heard her thoughts and was skeptical. Save me? A little girl like you can save me? Two hated being looked down on. What's wrong with being little? I'm the only princess in the palace. Hearing this, the third prince finally realized that the little girl in front of him was the legendary 18th princess. But as the saying goes, it's easy to add flowers to a brocade, but hard to offer charcoal in a snowstorm. He still didn't believe she would save him. Jojo was so angry, her face turned red, and she turned to leave. Just as she reached the door, she ran into Noble Lady Anne. Noble Lady Anne was delighted to see her. Princess, what are you doing here? The third prince has woken up and I was just about to go and tell you. The third prince was confused. Why is mother so friendly with her? Just then, Noble Lady Anne introduced them. This is the 18th princess who saved you. The third prince's heart skipped a beat. Now he had to believe it. But Jujo deliberately said in a sarcastic tone, I'm just a little girl. How could I possibly help? The third prince was embarrassed and quickly apologized. Please forgive my arrogance just now. Seeing this, Juju winked playfully. Just kidding. I'm not mad. She understood him deep down. After all, he was all too familiar with the cold realities of the harem. After this, the third prince slowly let down his guard and accepted this sensible and cute little sister. even vowing to repay her kindness one day. Jojo didn't care about being repaid. She just wanted him to get better soon. Originally, the third prince had planned to join forces with the southern kingdom to take revenge on the western Chu, but Guju's act of kindness made him change his mind. Meanwhile, news of the third prince's recovery with Guju's help soon reached Dijang's ears. Dijang knew that his plan to win him over would be much harder now, but he was determined to try anyway. The third prince was punishing himself by copying scriptures. One part for the western Chu he had almost betrayed, and one part for his kind and adorable little sister, Guju. Suddenly, he heard a noise outside. He had gotten so used to the peace and quiet of being with Guju that he had almost forgotten about the southern kingdom spies. The third prince barked, "Come in!" The visitor tested his willingness to form an alliance. The third prince decisively refused, stating that this was their last meeting, and the next time they saw each other, they would be enemies. The masked man was curious. Is it because of the little princess? The third prince glared at him. "Shut up. Don't ask what you shouldn't, or don't blame me for being rude to your master." The masked man's heart skipped a beat. He didn't dare say another word and quickly left. The third prince knew that even though he had cut ties with the southern kingdom, he still needed to be careful. For Guju's happiness, he was willing to make peace with the western Chu. On the other side, Jang found out that his recruitment attempt had failed, and that the third prince cared deeply for Guju. His little jealousy meter instantly overflowed. There are so many people who love her. What place do I even have in her heart? Just as he was worrying, Juju's sweet voice came from outside. "Brother Dijang, Juju is here to see you." Seeing the person he had been longing for, Dijang's heart bloomed with joy. "Juju, you're finally here." Jojo begged him not to be angry, and explained that she hadn't visited because she was helping her third brother recover. As soon as he was better, she had come straight to him. One second Dijang was saying he wasn't angry, and the next he was playing the victim. "I'm just a tribute prince. It's understandable that a princess of your status wouldn't have time for me. It's just that the days you weren't here felt like years." Jojo could tell he was jealous. She quickly took his hand and comforted him in her sweet voice. "I promise you, Brother Dijang, from now on, I'll have a nanny let you know in advance when I can come, so your waiting won't be so hard." Dajang was instantly appeased. "Thank you for your understanding, princess." Jojo then said, "I came today to tell you that I probably won't have time to visit you before the new year." After saying this, she lowered her head, guilty. She had just promised to visit more often, and now she was breaking her promise again. The Jang saw her dilemma and smiled understandingly, promising to wait for her. Juju was relieved that he wasn't angry and promised to visit him as soon as the New Year celebrations were over, then hurried off. Watching her leave, Dijang's smile faded, and a bold idea formed in his mind. He wanted to keep Guju by his side forever. In the blink of an eye, the new year arrived. For the first time, Dijang felt how lonely the festival could be. He poured his longing for Guju into his flute music. Suddenly, another flute melody interrupted him. "Who's there?" Dijang looked around wearily and saw Funky Wei had appeared out of nowhere. A meaningful smile played on her lips. "Don't be nervous. I'm not here to hurt you." But in her heart, she thought, "So, he's the male lead from the book. Interesting." Fun Highway thought that being reborn as the pampered female lead in a group favorite novel meant she could just coast to victory. She never expected to end up as the daughter of a disgraced duke. To reclaim her protagonist halo and secure her future wealth, she risked sneaking into the tribute prince's residence. Planning to use her beauty and wit to win over the original novel's male lead, Dijang. Unfortunately, her plan backfired. Dijang was extremely cautious, and his heart had room for only one person, Guju. Fungi shamelessly invited Dijang to play a duet with her, and when he refused, she didn't give up, resorting to manipulative tactics. "Little brother, don't send me away. You'll hurt my feelings." Dang was annoyed. He pushed her hand away and stared at her, thinking, did one of my siblings from the Southern Kingdom send this woman? His stare made Fun Kaiwei's hair stand on end, and she instinctively took a step back. Before she could speak again, a bright dagger was at her throat. Dijang's eyes were filled with killing intent as he asked coldly, "Who sent you?" Funkai was so scared she could barely speak.
No one sent me.
Then get out, or don't blame me for what happens next.
The moment he finished speaking, Fungai turned and ran.
Daijang felt something was off and told his attendant to find out if Fungai was an assassin sent by one of his brothers. This whole incident only made him appreciate Guju more.
He couldn't help but think, I wonder what she's doing right now.
While Daijang was thinking about Juju, Guju was also trying to figure out how to sneak out and find him. But just as she was about to make a move, her tyrant dad caught her and picked her up. "It's New Year's Eve. Where do you think you're going?"
Guju was worried about her brother Dang spending the new year alone and wanted to keep him company.
Concubine Li heard her thoughts and felt a little disappointed. "It's a day for family reunion. Doesn't Juju want to spend it with us?" Juju felt a pang of guilt and decided to stay with her parents for the night. But then the tyrant emperor started causing trouble again. "Who do you want to be with tonight? Juju, Daddy, or Mommy?" Only children have to choose. Guju wanted both, but the emperor insisted she pick one. This was too hard, and Juju was stumped. Actually, she already had an answer in her heart. "Mommy protected me for so many years, while Daddy has only been nice to us for a year. Of course, I like Mommy more." The emperor heard her thoughts and felt a wave of guilt. He quickly said, "Don't worry about it, Juju. Daddy was just teasing you." With that, the family of three sat down together. Juju looked at the delicious food on the table, her mouth watering. The emperor watched her gobble down her food, his heart filled with contentment. But there was still one thing on his mind. When would concubine Li finally let go of her worries and tell him that Guju was a princess? Thinking of this, the emperor stood up. "Everyone, today is New Year's Eve, a very important day. I have an important announcement to make. The 18th princess is no longer a child. She was born in the cold palace, and I have always felt I've wronged her. Today I have a gift for her." Concubine Li smiled and nudged Guju forward to thank the emperor. Jojo was full of anticipation. "What kind of gift is Daddy going to give me?" The emperor personally took up a brush and began to write on a piece of paper. When he was finished, he announced loudly, "The gift I have prepared is to give you a name and a title. From this day forward, the 18th princess's name shall be Funu, and her title shall be Yonglei." Hearing this, Jujo was overjoyed and quickly thanked her father, but concubine Li's brow furrowed slightly, as if the name held some hidden meaning. A moment later, Juju bounced over to her like a happy little deer, eager to share her joy. Concubine Li sighed softly. "Fungu is a good name. When the swallows return, the moon fills the western tower." Jojo was completely confused. "What does that mean?" the emperor explained. "It means that my beloved daughter has come to my side, like a returning swallow, and my life is now complete." His words not only deeply touched Gujo, but also moved himself. He quickly asked Juju for her reaction. Guju just winked playfully. "Let me think about it." However, the others at the banquet were having a bit of an existential crisis. Is His Majesty really treating a prince as a princess? Has he taken this act too far? The 13th prince, who knew Guju was a girl, couldn't hide his smugness, his smile almost reaching the ceiling. The crown prince, seeing his cheapo-looking expression, couldn't help but ask, "Third brother, you seem very pleased with yourself." The 13th prince gave a guilty smile and tried to explain. "Juju is my little sister. I'm just happy for her." Just then, an annoying voice broke the pleasant atmosphere. "Brother, it's been a while." The second prince walked towards them. The crown prince's face was filled with disgust. This guy is so persistent. The second prince had a fake smile on his face as he asked to join the crown prince for a drink. But the crown prince rejected him without a second thought. The sudden refusal made the second prince's smile freeze. He knew that if this continued, his carefully laid plans would be ruined. So he turned his attention to the naive 13th prince. Jojo saw her 13th brother happily chatting with the second prince and grew worried. Afraid her innocent brother would be tricked, she rushed over and stopped him from drinking the wine. The second prince is a fake prince and a major villain. Getting close to him will only lead to trouble.
Hearing Guju's thoughts, the 13th prince's heart skipped a beat. He quickly put down the cup and breathed a sigh of relief. Good thing Jojo warned me. Otherwise, I would have been framed and thrown back in jail. The second prince, having been rejected twice, was furious. He thought to himself, "You look down on me now, but one day, you'll be begging to get close to me." He quickly walked up to the emperor. "Father, I have a request." The emperor looked at him scrutinizingly. "What is it?" The second prince looked serious as he reported.
The Kayasu village area has been hit by a severe snowstorm, and there aren't enough people for disaster relief.
I request that you assign a few of my brothers to assist me. Hearing this, the 13th prince was intrigued, thinking it was a good opportunity to earn some merit.
But Guju's thoughts served as a warning bell, telling him there was a trap. Guju was frantic and decided she had to stop the second prince's scheme. The naive 13th prince almost fell into the trap set by the second prince, but luckily Jojo intervened in time. Her tyrant dad was confused and asked for a reason. Jojo was at a loss for words, but in her heart she was thinking, putting aside the second prince's ill intentions, the snowstorm in the coming year will cause countless casualties. I don't want my own brother to walk into danger. But she couldn't say any of this out loud. The second prince, seeing this, was secretly pleased and tried to persuade the 13th prince, 13th brother. If you help, you can save the people from this disaster. But the 13th prince refused flatly. Seeing his plan fall apart, the second prince was furious. Are you refusing because the little princess is against it? Hearing this, the emperor flew into a rage. The 13th prince doesn't want to go? So he's not going. Why are you shouting? The second prince immediately panicked and quickly apologized. Before he could finish, Guju raised her hand and interrupted.
A little snowstorm is too serious. Evacuation is better than disaster relief.
The emperor unconditionally believed that Guju's words were a sign from the heavens and decisively ordered the people of Kayasu village to be evacuated within 3 days. The stunned second prince was stunned again, but still didn't give up. Father, evacuation is too costly. The emperor frowned and waved his hand. I have acknowledged the will of heaven and issued a decree. Are you defying my order? Hearing this, the crown prince and the 13th prince were speechless. The will of heaven. Clearly, father just heard Guju's thoughts. Now the second prince held a grudge against Guju and decided to go to the disaster site himself, planning to come back and prove her wrong. Jojo sighed helplessly. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. I've warned you. If you get into trouble, don't blame me. With that little episode over, the New Year's Eve banquet performances were about to begin. Jojo happily ran to her parents' side. As the banquet was drawing to a close, she took advantage of her father being slightly tipsy and her mother being busy to sneak out. She was still worried about her brother Dijang and managed to slip past the guards to get to the tribute prince's residence. As she happily stepped through the gate, she saw a sneaky figure flash by. Did someone else come to see brother Dijang? Just then, she saw a small figure sitting in the cold courtyard. Brother Dijang, Jojo called out in her sweet voice. Dijang spun around and seeing the doll-like little girl was first stunned, then excitedly got up to greet her. Guju, you came to see me? Is this a dream? Of course not. I came especially to see you. Guju's face was beaming with happiness. Look, I brought you some delicious food. She was then pulled inside by Dijang. Suddenly, Juju stopped and said seriously, Brother Dijang, I have something to ask you. Dijang swore a solemn oath that he would never hide anything from her. Only then did Gujo slowly ask, I saw a girl at the gate when I came just now. Did someone else come to see you? Dijang was suddenly flustered, terrified that Guju would misunderstand. Protect Guju, Dijang told a white lie, saying that the person was just a servant who had come to bother him as usual, and that he was used to it. Hearing this, Juju huffed. How can you get used to that? She was determined not to let her brother Dang suffer such humiliation again, and promised to have her father reiterate his orders when she got back. Dajang looked at the indignant Guju, his heart filled with gratitude, not wanting to dwell on unpleasant things. Jojo quickly took out a food container. Brother Dijang, I brought you some dumplings. but I don't know what kind of filling you like.
Dang's eyes were filled with joy. He said he liked anything she brought and picked up a dumpling to put in her bowl.
Guju said she had already eaten and urged him to try them.
Then she asked curiously what people in the Southern Kingdom ate for the New Year.
Dijang smiled and replied, "Besides dumplings, we also have peach blossom crisps." Hearing this, Guju's face lit up. "That sounds delicious. I wish I could try some." Seeing this, Dijang immediately ordered his attendant, Chu Yang, to bring the remaining peach blossom crisps.
Chu Yang agreed on the surface, but was secretly distressed.
They had already run out of the ingredients, and in this rundown residence, their only comfort was gone.
When Guju saw the peach blossom crisps, her eyes instantly lit up. She eagerly grabbed a piece and popped it in her mouth, then cheered, "This is so delicious!" Seeing Jojo so happy made Dijang happy too. He secretly vowed to become stronger, so that Guju could be this happy every day. The immediate task at hand was to solve the problem of the peach blossom crisp ingredients. Soon, news of Dijang's search for ingredients reached Feng Kaiwei's ears. She was secretly pleased, hoping to use this opportunity to win Dijang's heart. The old butler warned her that the estate was in financial trouble, and they needed to be careful with their spending. But Feng Kaiwei was determined, and ordered the butler to get the ingredients immediately, fantasizing that Jiang would let down his guard once he had them, and then she wouldn't have to worry about any accusations. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but laugh like a pig. The old butler, seeing this, seriously questioned her sanity and was already thinking about finding a new job. A few days later, Chuang found out Funga's identity and informed Dijang, learning that she was the daughter of a disgraced duke. Dijang didn't see her as a threat, but he was curious why she kept bothering him. However, he didn't want to waste his energy on someone so insignificant. Right now, all he cared about was the peach blossom crisp ingredients. Chuang helplessly reported that the ingredients were extremely hard to find. Just as he was worrying, a pretentious voice called out, "Little brother!" Feng Jai walked in, holding a small wooden box. "Look what I brought you." Dejan glared at her. "You're not welcome here," but Feng Gai shamelessly presented the wooden box. "Don't be in such a hurry to send me away. I brought you the ingredients for peach blossom crisps." Jiang was slightly taken aback, then took the box. "I'm going to make the peach blossom crisps now. Chuang, you handle the rest." Chuang invited Feng Kaiwei to sit down, then also left. Feng Kaiwei was secretly pleased, thinking she was close to winning over Dijang. A moment later, Dijang came out with the freshly made peach blossom crisps. Feng Jai immediately rushed over. "Let me try." Dijang's face darkened and he shouted, "What do you think you're doing?" Feng Gai was stunned, her face full of grievance. These peach blossom crisps, weren't they? Made especially for